Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DeTalented Podcast. This is Brian DeTalent, and as always, I am here with my trusty companion, Mr. Jimmy DeTalent. Jimmy, say hello to everybody.
Halo.
Halo. That's
Halo.
a new one, isn't it?
Halo.
I like it, though. I have no problem with it. Man, how's it going this week?
Good, man. I am doing just fine and dandy.
Yep, man. Me too. I'm glad to be back. Was on vacation last week. I did have a lot of fun on the vacation. But man, it's always good when you finally get home. Even though you're not ready to come home yet, like when you get home, you're like, oh, sleep.
That's how it was for me when we were gone. I heard you had some bad travel.
Dude, I had worse. I think I had worse travel. I can't say that because you got stranded for a whole night, but you got a room comp. Dude, so in the first place, we flew American, like we said, and dude, they were terrible. We had 4 flights in total. Every one of them were delayed. On the way there, it wasn't that bad. It was, it was doable. But man, on the way home, we were supposed to fly out at 12:45 or 12:05 or something. And we all got boarded on the plane. It was on time, no problems. And they come on and they're like, okay, hey man, the computer on the plane had a fault in it. Everybody sit tight and then we'll take off here soon. Well, man, we sat on the plane for about 30 minutes and they finally said, hey, everybody, we're going to have to deboard the plane.
Did you say this was on the way back home?
This is on the way back home. Yeah, this was Saturday. And so we get off the plane. And then we sat in the at the gate there for about an hour and a half, and they're like, okay, everything's cool, everybody, we're gonna reboard just like we did last time, and then we're gonna take off. And at that point we'd already missed our connection in Charlotte, because we didn't even have much time if the flight would have been on schedule. But so we totally missed that flight. But okay, whatever. And then they reboard the plane, and we get another flight schedule, which the next flight, we were supposed to be home by 4:00. And by the time we missed that flight and we booked the next one that we could book, we weren't even leaving Charlotte until like 8:50 p.m. or whatever.
So what did you do in Charlotte for those hours?
We ate a hamburger and sat and looked at phones and all that stuff. But the worst part was that first flight out of Orlando was when they reboarded us after making us get off the plane. When
did you not have air?
So when they reboarded us, we got on the plane. The plane was 87 degrees, and they were like, "Don't worry, it'll cool off fast. We got everything going." Well, all of a sudden they come back on because the temperature is going up. I think everybody's burning up. Babies are crying. This one poor baby was soaking wet in sweat, and they're like, "Hey, but due to this power issue and this isn't done," and they kept saying maintenance hadn't done the paperwork yet. That they were going to have to. They were going to, it was going to be a little bit. It'd be 10 minutes. Well, they 10-minute us for approximately 4 hours. So we sat on the plane for 4 hours in sweltering heat, being told if we get off the plane, we can't get back on. And that they could, by law or rule or policy or whatever, they can keep you on the plane for 4 hours before they have to let you off. So they did. Wow. So they kept us on the plane for right at that 4 hour mark, and then we took off. And then we flew back to Charlotte.
So did you have air in the air?
Yeah. By the time when we took off, it started getting
everything was
cooler because all the power was going and everything. Okay. And, they get mad. People get mad and they question what they're doing. And of course their answer is, well, would you want to take off on a messed up plane? It's like, no, but don't store us on here.
I guess I don't understand the reason why they couldn't have let you off. And go back to the gate while they worked on the plane.
Exactly. Like, what was the purpose of keeping us on that long? And, and what the flight crew was saying is that it wasn't their fault. It was the fault of the maintenance people, the maintenance guys. And the other thing is all it was, and I guess, all machines have to do this, and they had to reboot the plane. That's what the problem was. So here's what I think. I think maintenance didn't get down there until however long it was. I think
so. They weren't working for 4 hours.
I don't think so.
It took them.
I think it
3 hours and 55 minutes to get down there, and they just hit the.
And they just kept on.
They just hit the reboot button.
So, by the way, I'm only going to do this once. if you are watching the DeTalented Podcast, welcome. We ask that you would do us just a couple of favors. If you would, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That is the biggest way that you can help us. We are trying to grow this thing. We ask that you comment, that you like, and that you share with all your friends. You can also find us on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on, not on Twitter, but on TikTok, and on Spotify. So you're really hard pressed to be able to find a reason that you won't be able to find or to listen to the DeTalented Podcast.
That sounds pretty costly, though, honestly.
No, you know what, man? I got a new pricing schedule. It is now absolutely free to watch, to enjoy, to listen to the DeTalented Podcast on any platform. No cost.
Did you say free?
Free. You can't get nothing for free.
You can.
Do you think this is the reason that one person on TikTok said that there needs to be a license for people that
could have been
to get podcast equipment? You know, I tried to respond to his comment and TikTok banned it.
TikTok banned.
TikTok got on me and told me that I was breaking community standards.
Oh.
All I did was told him that
I didn't see that comment anymore.
Yeah, I just deleted the comment since they wouldn't let me respond. Why did they let that guy say something and we weren't allowed to say something?
Well, maybe you didn't choose your words carefully.
You think that's what it was? It was my fault.
That could have been your fault.
You know, I don't know, man. I just know that, I don't know. I don't know what the guy was talking about. Most people that are seeing it seem to like it, get a lot of positive stuff, and then just have that guy come. But you know what? There's so many trolls, and really, I've always been told you should just appreciate the trolls.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's being ignored is the worst thing, right?
Yeah. So exactly.
Good, bad, indifferent.
I seen you looking over here. That's my phone buzzing, going crazy.
I heard it.
Everybody's.
I know you have it on silent, but you still have it on vibrate.
It's on vibrate.
Vibrate.
I guess I could turn vibrate off. I've never done that. I've never put my phone completely on silent.
My phone stays on vibrate. So if I get a call, you're going to hear and feel the vibration.
Okay. Yeah, I leave mine on vibrate, but and usually I don't ever turn the ringer on unless I don't know. Not very often, but I miss a lot of calls and and texts, and I don't see them till later.
Yeah,
but I'm honestly not a person that's like always. I know there it is again. I'm not a person that's always on my phone. Let's see. Let me see what's going on here. I got to listen to this one.
You go ahead and see what's going on. You take a listen, and we'll just be here waiting on you. Do you recognize the number? Is it a spam call? Or is it a phone number that has been stored in your phone?
It's our guest.
Okay,
so,
well,
okay.
So maybe you should listen to that one.
I did. It was just a text. Okay. So anyway, guys, so we'll just segue into that, guys. We got a guest. He's not arrived yet. We're waiting for him to get to the studio. And his name to me, let me give his real name is Dennis Frasier. But to me, he has always been Bub.
Yep.
And he's a childhood friend. And he has a really cool story. Well, I guess it's cool, but it's not cool too. But I'm going to let you say it, Jimmy, because you practiced it a minute ago.
I did not practice. I just Googled the how it is pronounced.
I'm calling that practice. Transverse myelitis.
Sounds good.
Is that right?
Myelitis.
And at one point, he was unable to move or walk and wasn't sure what the future was going to be. So he's going to come in. We're going to talk about that a little. And we're also just going to do what we always do and just kind of shoot the breeze and see where it takes us. I never planned on having childhood friends on here. It's just, I guess you don't realize how many of the people in your life have unique stories.
That's the thing, man. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story to tell.
They do. And I guess what makes the stories really good is when, other people need to kind of to tap into other people who have experienced whatever it is. And I know it's a thing that people get. I think it's pretty rare. And I think you're, like I said, I want him to talk about it, but, from what I understand, I think you're fine. And then all of a sudden you just bam, you just lose the use of your body. So we'll see when he gets here, and we'll talk about it a little bit. Until then, though, man, there are several things and several subjects that we can talk about. One of these things, man, are you watching what's going on in Los Angeles, bro?
Not closely, but I do know it's mayhem.
It's total mayhem.
Yeah.
Dude, they are burning cars, blocking the freeway, and they're saying it's peace. The California governor is saying that's a peaceful protest, and mad that the federal government, that the White House, that Trump is sending in the National Guard to help them. Like, dude, it's hard for me to fathom. You have illegal immigrants who are protesting being deported to Mexico or the original country, and they're running around waving a Mexican flag and burning American flags. What kind of logic does that make?
But they're protesting
having to go back
to Mexico, but they're waving Mexican flags.
Yes. Isn't that something? And that's all peaceful. And they're throwing rocks off overpasses at the federal ICE agents.
I did see that. I did see where a number of police cars looked like stopped on the highway, and it looked like their windshields were pretty destroyed.
And man, a lot of them they're literally, I mean, they're driving down the road and they're burning this, looters are starting again. And,
is it the whole city? Is it a section of the city?
Man, I don't know the specifics on that. I think it's downtown area, LA.
I'm thinking, man, we were just there a few years ago, and
that's been 8-9 years.
I say a few. It's been longer than that, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been 8 or 9 years. But I think it's downtown area because it looks like it's on the freeways.
Okay.
And whichever freeway it is, I'm not sure. It didn't look like it's like the PCH or anything. But
is it still going on? Did it stop? How long has it been going on?
Well, it's not
going
to
go
on.
How long did it go on?
Well, it went on, I know, for 2 days or whatever, and then he sent in the National Guard and now even some Marines, I think. And that's why they're mad. In fact, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is suing the Trump administration for sending in the National Guard to stop these peaceful protests, which is ridiculous.
So the governor of California is suing Trump, the current administration, for sending in the National Guard to
save his city. So, just a thing, I guess. It just makes no sense, man. You got to be logical, and we try to avoid getting too political here, but man, that's just craziness and ridiculousness and stupidity. I'm sorry. You don't allow people to be lawless, and if they allow that and just said it's okay, then why have any laws, right? It's like it's just giving them the freedom to do whatever they want, and then the president sends help to stop the chaos, and they say he's being a tyrant, a dictator. That's the word they want to use.
So what is the outcome that the governor wants from the protests?
I don't know. It's just they're in that vacuum of wokeness, and I think they think, well, I don't know. I think the main viewpoint of most Americans, and this is like a 90-10 issue, is what they say, with the immigration and with the, 90% of Americans support, not allowing illegal immigrants to just overrun the country. And we love everybody. That's what they want to say is, well, love people. No, we love everybody. But that doesn't mean you allow your country to become a wasteland of just anybody to come in not being vetted, not knowing where they come from, not knowing why they're leaving their country. And the biggest mistake being made is people say, well, this country was built on immigration. No, it wasn't. The people that come to this country and establish it were not immigrants. They were settlers. There's a difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, there has to be this done. And like I said, it's a 90-10 issue, but yet, and I think the biggest thought process on the whole thing is that the only reason to do that is to have those voters that would be on your side.
So you think that's the long game, is to?
I don't know. nobody knows what the long game is now because it's so wild, man. It's so crazy.
So have there been any other protests pop up anywhere else?
I think there's some smaller ones. I heard there was even some in like Texas or whatever, but not to this degree, not to this level, and not so much connected, right? It's because ICE was in LA.
So they were there actively deporting people,
right? Illegal immigrants.
Yeah. Huh.
And that's the other thing that gets me is they're saying they're not criminals. It's like, man, if they're in this country illegally, they broke the law. They are a criminal, just like anybody. If you break a law, it makes you a criminal.
I know this, man, a few years ago when I was in Hungary and we were traveling to the Romanian border to get into Romania. We were in a van and had a trailer, and we got pulled over, and a couple different military people came into the bus that we were on, and they searched everybody's. I say search. They asked for everybody's passports to make sure that we were there legally and had the proper documentation for us. So, and that was, like I said, Hungary to Romania, and we were just simply visiting.
Dude, do you remember when we went to Mexico? The hoops you have to jump through to get to
during
Mexico?
Customs?
Yeah, I mean, we go through customs, and then we have to fill out the form to tell them when we're there, why we're there, when we're leaving. I mean, it's like they enforce it. Like, why are we? Like, I don't understand how in the world it's looked on negatively that we enforce our immigration laws. It's like anything else. It's like, it's a law, and it's like, I don't know, man. Man, the political scene is just so crazy right now. Even with like Trump and Musk, with like what happened? There was like this big bromance, and all of a sudden,
I was gonna say they were like super duper best friends.
Dude,
and now
they broke up.
It looks pretty bitter.
But what I hear,
they broke up.
There's one thought or theory, I guess it should say, that says they're really bros, they're really cool, but it just got so rough on Elon that Trump's like, hey man, let's just play. Let's look like we're Breaking Bad.
So that's a theory,
but I don't think it's correct, or it's either not correct or it's not working, because instead what happened was like Elon, I think Tesla took even a bigger hit. Like it went worse for him, financially. Yeah. But I don't know. I haven't been following that one too closely because I don't want to get too emotionally involved in it. I really like Elon Musk, and people hate it, but I like Trump, so I want them both to get along.
But they're not. Well, people don't get along. I mean,
no, they don't, man. The thing is Elon went like nuclear and accused him of being on the Epstein list, and
I did.
Did all that publicly.
I did see that.
Said that his tariffs were going to cause a recession. It's like, dude, this was all stuff you were down with a few weeks ago. So how did you just all of a sudden break, this direction on it? But I don't, I don't know. Maybe there's some, here's what I think, and I feel like I know it. But anytime there's something big going on and it's all you see on the news, I feel like we're just being distracted from what's really happening.
Yeah, well,
everything is like a smoke screen.
Well, yeah, it's like the magician. It's sleight of hand. Pay attention to this hand while he's, trading out his cards with the other one. And I agree. I think any of the vapid stories that you hear about pop culture or entertainment, when there's big to-dos in that world, there's usually something else happening somewhere along the scenes. And, people, it's popcorn, man. People pay attention to the insightful headlines.
Yeah, absolutely. People are gonna pay attention to is the drama headlines, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Another word, but I mean, that's what people thrive on. I honestly think that's what's driving all of this. I think people love the drama, not even if they necessarily love the drama, but they get so intertwined in the drama. They get so sucked into whatever side they're on that they can't see anything else.
Well, yeah. And then all of a sudden you're following the story and you know everything about it and you're invested.
Yeah.
People are talking about you. You know, it's like, excuse me.
Bless you.
There is such thing as bad press, certain people say. Well,
that's what they say. But, you know, I would like to deal with the LA riots, you know. I know Gavin Newsom had presidential hopes, and they're saying there's no chance he'll ever he won't even get it. Now what they're saying is that he probably won't even get a chance to run. Like he won't win. Yeah, he won't get, what do you call it? He won't even get through the primaries or whatever, because nobody's gonna, you know, they showed his track. Man, his track record in California is awful, dude. The things he's done. That dude, you know, he's crazy. But anyway, they're saying that shot. But now, obviously, all of that is coming from right-leaning news sources.
Right.
You know, the left's trying to probably make him look like like some kind of superhero, which he's not. He's a goon. But
yeah, well, I do know that I'm assuming it's under his administration. I mean, there had been a mass exodus of Californians, or at least people who'd been there for several years, and we talked about that, at least in the entertainment industry, where they had been moving to Texas, they've been moving to Tennessee, Florida.
Yeah, Nashville's. I know Nashville and Austin, I think, are the two main places that a lot.
And
went.
What did that? Was it policy? Was it taxation? Do you know?
I think it's everything there. The way he runs. I mean, look, he pretty much ignored the wildfires. He ignored homelessness. He did all this. You know, they begged him for years and years and years to clean up San Francisco, and he never would do it until Xi Jinping or whoever from China was coming over to visit. So then he cleaned up the streets real fast. You know, during COVID, he locked down everything, shut down the economy, and then they caught him at some fancy restaurant having dinner with like no mask on.
I did see that.
So he's just done things like that. You know, he's just kind of, man, you can just look at that guy and tell he's just a slimy guy. You know, he's just not the, not somebody you want to be.
What is it? Is his hair? You don't like his hair?
No, I don't mind his hair.
His hair?
It's the things he's done and the things he said, and you'll hear him say one thing 1 minute, and the next he'll say the next minute. He started that podcast, and let me tell you here's where he screwed up. I think this is where he really wrecked himself, dude. Like one of the first guests, if not the first guest on his podcast, was Charlie Kirk. And dude, Charlie Kirk just went on there and schooled him.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did that go?
Yeah.
Did he not know Charlie Kirk's background? Or
no, he knew.
Did?
He knew. He literally asked Charlie Kirk, he was like, what do you think Democrats can do better? He was like, have better ideas. He was like, he was like, everything you guys, he just broke it down for him on what the Americans wanted. And that's the thing is, you know, most news sources you hear are so left-leaning that you get such weird stuff. Like if you watch a left-leaning news outlet and then you watch a right-leaning news outlet, like you don't know what's going on because they're two complete separate narratives of the same story.
So then that's my question, man. Where's the truth? Is it in the middle or is it neither? Is it, where is
that's
the truth?
Why, you know what I like? I hate when it comes to things people say, I hate clips. Don't give me clips.
Yeah.
I want to see the whole thing in the context of which it was said. If we get that, if you can watch the whole source, like video or whatever it is, and get the whole conversation, then because you look back at all the things that we heard about either side, like most of the time you're getting a clip of something and you're not hearing the rest of it.
Right.
And then there's like, oh, they said this. Well, like they did, but they said this and this first and then this after. And then,
well, it's contextual. I mean, you take anything out of context and it can sound horrible,
Yeah, same way my thought process is the same way when it comes to like the Bible, man. I always talk about it as like, there's so much in the Bible that people take and they pull it out of context and then it means something that it doesn't really mean because they're not getting you got to read the wrapper around the goods, man, because there are goods in the middle, but if you don't understand what it is, right, if you don't understand the wrapper and the context of which everything is said, then you don't have the full story. And it's amazing the amount of people who believe, things that are pulled out of context. Even Rogan was talking about it. He's like, man, I allowed myself to believe things that I found out were just completely untrue. Because he believed things that were pulled out of context. He's like, I seen the video of them saying what they said, but what I didn't see was what happened before and
Sure.
after, right? The biggest example is when they said Trump said wherever it was, and there was rioters, and some of them were like white supremacists, and others were just conservatives and Democrats, and so what Trump said was there were good people on both sides, but in that statement, he also said not the white supremacists. He said not them,
but
the ones breaking the law. But they took that out and tried to make it look like he was endorsing the whole thing. And there are still people believe that he said that, and there's clear video of the context. And if you have common sense, you can deduct what he said and you can do it. But that's the problem, man, is that whole common sense thing. So,
yeah, that's true. But also too, let's say this. You tend to want to believe whatever side that you're leaning to. It's very easy to believe what you want to hear.
Absolutely. You're always going to believe what you want to, what I would be really in favor of is like the absolute truth. Yeah. Is that crazy to say? If we had, and I think if everybody had the absolute truth and everybody just said, okay, this is what it is, this is the way things are, then I don't think you would see all the unrest and the drama and the fighting and all the infighting and all that. Do you think, though, the American people would be blown away if we absolutely knew the 100% unequivocal truth? Yeah, I don't think we'd ever vote about how this country is ran. I don't think we'd ever vote for anybody again. I agree. We'd be like, no, it doesn't matter. And the thing about it is we're never going to know. And that's the thing, too, with conspiracies. Like, bro, we don't, like some people swear the presidents have been chosen way in advance before we ever know. Because, like the Bilderberg Society and the owls or whatever they are. And they have all of these things that all these powerful people go to. And maybe those are true. I know those organizations exist. Oh, those things happen. So, but what is actually going on there? We'll never know. And that's one of the things they say that everybody hates Trump for, because he's not a part of any of that. But again, who says and who knows? And I want to, just like you just said, I want to believe he's not, right? And so that's why I choose to believe. You just said, hear that? That was a vibration. See? I did. Yeah. I did hear it. But what did you just say? You want to believe. I want to believe that he's not. That's what I choose to believe. Yeah. But I don't have any, I don't know that. Yeah. Just like we can't know anything, especially when it comes to government stuff. Man, they hide so much from us. They don't want us to know anything. Like the Epstein file should already be out. The JFK file should already be out. The fact that they're saying, well, we got to do all this stuff because we want to do, then they just make excuses on why they don't give it. Do you think it's because they think the American people can't handle it, or do you think they would be uprising? Why does that matter if there are that many people and they committed? I don't care how powerful and big they are. Like if people did that, they should go to jail. Even if Trump did it, he should go to jail. But but that's one thing. As soon as that happened, like Epstein's lawyer come out and made a statement and said, I can tell you unequivocally, without doubt, that Donald Trump is not on the Epstein list. Who said that? Epstein's lawyer. Oh, really? Yeah. Said that he did have a relationship with Epstein, but was never involved in any of his escapades, or was unaware of them, or if he was aware of them, nobody knows it. So do you think Epstein's lawyer knows the truth? Does he? Absolutely. I think he's got the list. Yeah. I think the FBI has the list. I think Trump has the list. Do you think we'll ever see that real list? I don't think so. I think we already would have. You got to go by. I don't think we'll ever see the whole JFK thing. Yeah. And I don't know why. Why did that? That's a question. Like you said, you bring up some good points. I don't know why they choose to shield the American people from the truth. I don't want to be shielded from the truth. Give me the truth, even if it hurts. But that's the thing. I don't think they're shielding us from the truth because they have our best interest in mind. I don't think it's that they don't think we can handle it. I think they're probably afraid of an uprising. Yeah, they don't want us to completely. Well, here's what it is. I think it's that they're afraid that we will lose our faith in them. Yeah. A lot of people have, but dude, a lot of people haven't. We still have have you seen the amount of people that get on there and they're just like, everything's okay with, it's just like crazy, and that's what I think that's why they hate him, is he went in with that whole drain the swamp attitude. And they're like, hey, he's calling us the swamp. And I'm going to tell you something, man. It ain't just, there's some swampy Republicans too, man, you know.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Like, it's both sides swampy. That's the facts.
I just don't think that and this is probably a general overstatement. I don't think many politicians have our best interest in their mind. I really don't, man.
Yeah. No, I don't either.
And maybe they started out that way.
So here's what they say, and that's why the people support him, is they say Trump's not a politician and that he does have our best interests, you know, at heart. At least that's what people, again, that's what people say. And you can say he's not a politician all you want, but he's been a politician for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
He switched over, you know. A lot of people say, well, he's a celebrity. And that's always funny to me, that people only act like they act like the only time we ever knew him was on The Apprentice. The Apprentice. He was a huge billionaire before that show. I mean, he got that show because he was already famous. I mean, man, that dude was in Home Alone.
I was going to say, he was in Home. I remember him in Home Alone.
WWE.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, well, that wasn't WWE. It was WWF
back then.
Yeah, man. He, you know,
yeah.
Donnie Boy's been around a long time.
Yes.
So, you know, and has he done some slimy stuff? Dude, he's a rich billionaire. You show me any billionaire that hasn't done some slimy stuff. Yeah. You know?
Well, and then too, I mean, as far as celebrities go, I mean, that's nothing new to politics. I mean, look, Ronald Reagan was a big actor back in the 80s. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
I mean, who else? I mean, I can't. Speaking of wrestling, what's his name? Kane from.
He's a mayor.
Yeah.
Of some town in,
so a lot
I forget where, but
a lot of entertainment.
You know what's funny, man, is I don't know if they do the podcast together all the time, but there was one on the other day where it was him and the Undertaker, and I think like they're still best friends, and you know, a lot of people are friends with the Undertaker, but he's more Democrat, and Kane is a conservative, Republican. Very conservative. Okay. And they fuss, but they're friends. Yeah. They're friends. You know, they're able to still have a relationship, which people should.
Don't you think that's how it should be? It's okay to state your opinion.
Absolutely.
And we can still be friends regardless how you fall.
Yes.
What opinion?
And honestly, I feel like conservatives are more like that. I feel like if you disagree with somebody on the left and they hear you say it, it's attack.
Do you think it's always been that way, or do you think that's been a shift here recently?
I think it's been since 2016.
Yeah. Because I really, like, we talked about this a few weeks ago.
Yeah, like, did we not realize it?
You know, I can remember when we were young, people would get into arguments around the dinner table or at family reunions about which, you know, are you Democrat, are you Republican, but never to this degree. Yeah, now it's like a fight to the death. Well, it's like, hey, you're not my friend, you're not my family anymore. Yeah. It's wild. I've not seen that. Again, it wasn't the Conservative Party, but the Democratic Party encouraged people to not be with their families on Thanksgiving if they voted for Trump. If they voted for Trump, not to be with their family? If they had family members that voted for Trump, that they should not associate with them any longer. Wow. You know? That's interesting. Yeah, man. It's crazy. It makes no sense. You didn't hear all of that stuff going on when that was going down? No, I didn't. Yeah, it's funny, man. They were literally calling. Dude, I am guilty of not following the news very closely. You know what? You're not guilty of it. You're smart for doing that because it will overtake you. We talked about that a little bit with Chief Bolin. If you're not careful, man, it'll overtake you. Yeah. I've tried to limit myself on it as of late because of that. I got to where, you know, my whole YouTube feed was just, you know, just news reels. Yeah. And I was like, man, I need to start. So you know what I did? I did the perfect thing, dude. What'd you do? I started watching the best sitcom. Well, I'm not going to say one of the best sitcoms ever created. What's that? The Office, man. Again, dude. I can't disagree with you. Dude, I can just watch it over and over. Is that a recent development, or have you always been an Office fan? I've always been, but it's been several years since I watched it. Because I don't remember us talking about The Office too.
So what happened was, I don't know why, the YouTube algorithm
popped up in your recommended.
It popped up like a clips thing in there, and then come to find out, unbeknownst to me, Sam had just been watching it on his own on the Peacock app.
Yeah,
and I didn't know there was like this this whole.
Oh, you can do the super
fans.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've been watching the super fans episode. Yeah. Dude, I've got a few favorites. I love it. When Dwight maces Pam's old Roy when Roy comes in after Jim.
Dude, he was Jim's hero there for a little bit.
He was, man. Yeah. Jim wanted to pay him back and everything. And one that's I think underratedly funny is when Jim walked in and hit Dwight with that snowball, and Dwight went crazy, and then like set him up in the parking lot,
yeah, he went crazy. He went ham,
dude.
He went crazy.
And then at the end, he had all them snowmen built.
Yeah,
he was freaking out. He was up on the roof, and he was like, "The real winner's not with a snowball; it's with fear." Dude, it's just funny, man.
I had some belly laughs watching, like crying, laughing, but just like Michael Scott, man. Like to me, dude. He was just I don't know, that one particular episode where Oscar said his finances were in dire straits and he was going to have to declare bankruptcy, and he walks out of the office and says, "I declare bankruptcy," and Oscar's like, that's not what that means.
Yeah. Oh man, there's so many good ones. The beach episode's good, dude.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
When he was like trying to get the whole office to walk across the hot coals.
Yeah. And then Pam did it at the end, and nobody was paying attention.
Nobody was paying attention. Yeah. And then that's when she declared her love for Jim, right?
She did.
Yeah.
And that was awkward because he was
with Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
look what happened in the end. Spoiler alert if you don't watch The Office.
Oh yeah, you don't want to. Yeah.
Because really, the whole story was wrapped up kind of about Jim and Pam's love back and forth.
You know what though? I don't know if it started out with that intention.
I don't either, but that's the way. That's how they wrapped it up.
I think they recognize this is the hook. This is what the hook is, and so they played off of that, and then because it's totally based off the British version.
Yeah.
But the British version, in fairness, the British version only ran one season.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then some guy seen it, went over there and immediately called, what's his name? The creator over there. I can't remember the guy's name, the comedian that starred in it and created it.
Yeah.
Jervis or whatever.
Yeah. Ricky Gervais.
Yeah. And so, and he was like, man, I got to buy the right. And he immediately bought the rights to it and started over in America. And then Gervais helped, he's credited as producer on some of those episodes. Yeah. And did you know that everybody in the NX are writers on the show?
No, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, so Toby's a writer on the show.
I didn't know Toby. I knew
Kelly.
I knew that Kelly. Kelly's a big writer.
Yeah, and BJ Novak.
Yeah, BJ Novak was huge. Yeah.
So so everybody in the annex, they're all writers on the show.
Huh. Interesting.
But I think it's funny. We just named all the people in the annex though. That's the thing. It's just those three.
Yeah.
It's not an accounting. Just the annex.
Just the annex. Man, that was so good. I mean, I can tell you somebody who can quote that line for line.
Michael. Yeah, I know he watches a lot.
Well, he can give you almost like episode numbers, scene. I mean, he goes deep, dude.
Dude, it's such it's so funny, man.
And you know what? That takes your mind off of stuff, doesn't it?
It does. It Michael's such a goon, man.
Yeah,
he's just such a goon. Not your son, Michael.
No, I know what you mean. Well, he's a goon too.
But, yeah.
I followed you, but and I think that when Steve Carell went off, I felt like the heart of The Office left. And they didn't last too many.
Why did he go off?
I really don't know. I don't know if he just went on to do movies, because he did go on to do more movies.
I wonder if it was the Minions movies.
Man, I don't know. I don't know the.
How many seasons was he not on? 2 or 3?
2 at the most, I think.
But then didn't he come back at the end he came back for Dwight's wedding.
He came back for Dwight's wedding, I believe, and he didn't have any lines. He didn't speak at all. He was just shown. He didn't say anything. Like
when he come in and Dwight went and hugged him, he didn't say nothing?
No.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. Wow. Now, I don't know if that was contractually, like he couldn't, or I don't know what the deal was, but he didn't have any lines.
Huh, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I need to go watch that.
Like I said, the heart was going, but don't get me wrong, dude. I loved I loved all the characters. I liked Andy a whole lot. I mean,
Cornell. Dude, Andy was a goon too. No, but and dude, Andy and Dwight ended up really, they were all for it. That's the thing about it. Like they're like Jim and Dwight were buddies, man, but they're arch enemies at the same time.
Well, and then you saw that when Jim planned his bachelor party.
Yeah.
And like it was all good surprises. Like he wasn't messing with them.
Yeah.
Like he was
really... what I watched, and this was just by accident, or this was just earlier today. It was Robbie's Rise and Fall. And I forgot that he was like, he built that website and had them all log all their sales and like regular and in the website. He committed fraud.
You're talking about Ryan?
Yeah. And they come in, FBI came in and arrested him out of there. Wow, we've gone deep into the office conversation. Well, I'll tell you what, man, let's take a break. And when we come back, we will have our host, my goodness. We will have both of our hosts and along with our guest, Mr. Dennis Frasier. So don't go nowhere. This will just be a second for you. It will be a few minutes for us, but we'll catch you in a few. Hey, everybody. We are back from the break. I'm here again with my cohort, Jimmy DeTalent, and we have a guest with us. Now, let me just preface this, Jimmy. When we started this podcast, I was excited about guests that would come on. But I never planned or knew that some of our most interesting guests really so far would be some of my childhood friends. I had such an amazing childhood. We had such a good group of buddies. There were so many of us. There was like an army of us, man. And, we had Billy Bolin on, which was, like I said, he was the chief of police of the 257th largest city in the United States. Yeah. In case you didn't know that. Yeah.
Billy knew that.
Billy Bolin. Who would have thought?
And he was a childhood friend of ours. And then I had a friend, and I was really excited. I got to tell you how excited I was when you texted me. I was like, hold on a minute. I haven't heard from this guy in a long time. And it's just because life happens, not because it's on purpose, right? But anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is you never realize, though, how many of your friends have these amazing stories that happened after you kind of, inadvertently split ways. I don't know if I've seen you since we were probably 20 years old or something like that.
Along the line, yeah.
But anyway, everybody, welcome one of my oldest friends, one of our oldest friends. And I guess do you go by Dennis now?
No.
Okay.
I mean, kind of. Yeah. I mean, some people do, but like
you will always be Bub to me.
In college, I was even called Bub, so, but some people call me Dennis, but just whatever you feel.
Well, Dennis.
So you have no offense of us calling you Bub during this whole.
No. Well, it's a good thing.
Podcast.
It's a good
Not
thing.
Not at all.
No.
Some people refuse to call me Dennis.
Oh, yeah. Well, I won't refuse to call you that. I just don't know that I have the ability.
It wouldn't seem right if you did.
It wouldn't seem right. Yeah. Your dad was Denny. And you have always been Bub. So welcome, Mr. Dennis Bub Frasier. He will be Bub the rest of the time. Bub's got an amazing story that we're going to get into here in a little bit. But first of all, we just been kind of shooting the breeze here. And we've had some pretty good conversation that kind of connected with what we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Talking about the things being pulled out of context and all the craziness that's going on. And I think the biggest thing that I heard while we were just talking offline, that just lines right up with us, man, is the fact that it's so crazy that people on whatever side you're on can't at least still be friends. And even the amount of, I don't know how many you've lost. I've lost friends. Yeah. I've lost people because of my political views. And I'm not a politician and I'm not crazy with it or anything, but it's just so nuts that people can't come together on this. And you know what, Bub, we were talking about earlier is I don't remember it being like that when we were kids.
No.
Do you know the only political person I remember from our childhood?
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Come on, man, give it a shot.
You've got to know this.
Chris Gibson?
No, but that's funny.
So you remember we lived on Kathleen.
Yep.
He lived on Frizzy.
Yep. It would have to be.
You live right down by the woods.
Goodness, my goodness, Mr. Mosby. Yes, Mr. Mosby.
That is literally the only really super political person I remember as a kid.
Yeah.
And man, he was definitely political.
Sure.
Like that cat.
Yeah.
He was going around knocking on doors and getting Democrats in the door.
He was a Democrat. That's right. Yeah.
But I will say this, and this is where I get in trouble because I'm a big mouth, but he was a Democrat. He was not a woke liberal.
Right. Yeah.
And there's definitely such a huge difference in that, man. My view of it is the Democratic Party doesn't exist anymore, and neither do the Republicans.
Right.
Donald Trump was one of the biggest He's a Democrat. He's an old school Democrat, is what he is. And a lot of the policies that he pushes now were old school Democrat policies that they fight so hard against now. And not saying I'm on that side, I am, but anyway, it's just, but I am not. I don't hate anybody,
right,
or fault anybody for their opinions, right? And hopefully we can get back to that again as people.
What I don't understand really, like, I guess, is to put so much into a political party, which, in the grand scheme of things, when you look at certain aspects of politics, they really aren't looking out for our best interest.
They don't care about us.
I preach that all the time.
Yeah.
Man.
And so to put that much energy into a side doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, it not only, I mean, think about it, man. People put that much energy into it, and not only energy, but like hate or love or whatever. And to somebody that doesn't even know your name.
Right.
Doesn't even care anything about, you're a number to them.
Yeah.
And
we are dots on a map.
Yes.
And flyover states.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what? I have to remind myself of that sometimes, because I openly admit, on this show and, in our conversations, I get sucked up into it, dude.
Yeah.
Like at one point, like my wife was like, look, this is ridiculous, because I turn on YouTube and like my entire feed is nothing but news, right? So now I've got it. I was telling Jimmy earlier, when we did a little prelude before you got here, that now I've got it filled up with I've been rewatching The Office and watching Office clips. And are you an Office fan, man?
Yes, absolutely.
You can't go wrong with The Office.
That and Seinfeld and just rerun. Like,
Seinfeld.
I'm a reruns person. Like, it's
me too. And I remember this from when we were kids, because you're at Cheers. You're at Cheers. Oh man, we did a whole thing about Norm. Yeah. Did you watch any of that episode?
Which one?
Where we talked about Norm a little bit, the whole and the Diddy thing, and it turned out that Norm had died on the anniversary day of the show
last
ending.
show was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
so,
and was it you guys that also talked about, what is it? He was Jason Sudeikis from Saturday Night. Like, okay,
I never knew that before.
Yeah, I didn't know it either until you mentioned it, I believe.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at the value of this podcast.
The value of the
Did I mention that if you haven't done it, you should click on subscribe. You should click on like. You should share this thing. You should tell all your people about the DeTalented Podcast. Where can you watch it? You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it on Spotify. You can check us out on TikTok. You can check us out on X. There is not a place that you can't find us. If you're looking for a reason not to listen or to watch the DeTalented Podcast, Jimmy, there's not one.
But it costs so much.
It's free.
I see.
It's getting ready to get juicy.
But man, I definitely want to get into some of your story, because I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm gonna be completely honest. I was kind of following it when it happened on Facebook, because you were living in Florida at the time, and you were, like, if I'm correct, you were doing mortgages, right?
Yep.
That's something we have in common. I did that for a long time.
No, I did not know that.
Me and Chad.
Loan originating?
Yep.
Oh, that's right. Well, he was with Oak Street.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And Jimmy worked at it too
for a little. Well, that wasn't Oak Street.
It was Great Stone.
Great Stone. That was a whole.
But
that got interesting.
Yeah, I worked for Evans Financial. I wrote loans, which was Chad and another guy, a friends of his, company. They opened it. It was back when mortgages were just buck wild.
He went into account executive for a while
eventually,
too. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I ended up at Conseco when they were here in town for a little bit, and then Chad ended up.
I don't even know how I got mixed up in that, man.
In the last name?
Well, it turns out it was mafia owned.
Yeah.
Dude,
no, listen.
No, legit mafia owned.
Chad got flown down there, and it was this gated community, and it was just this crime family, I guess. And he went in, and it was like this big office. And then he came back, and like 2 weeks later, they were like, "Hey, Chad, man, office is closing down. Need you to send all this stuff back." Then we found, and then it was on was it on TV, or how did they?
There was several news sources citing it. But they got shut down.
They
fled the country with hundreds of millions of dollars.
FBI, dude, we were writing loans that weren't funding.
And that was Which company was that?
It was Great Stone Mortgage.
Great Stone. Okay.
Dude, writing.
They had
mortgages-
armored trucks going in and out of their gated community.
So have you guys seen The Big Short?
I
Yes,
have not.
with Steve Carell
Yeah.
and
Yes.
who else was it?
Steve Carell. It had what's the Ryan the Notebook guy. Why am I having a brain fart?
Gosling.
Yeah, Gosling.
And then it also had
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that movie, I know that I lived that. Okay, and so
That was around the housing bubble.
yes,
Right.
and so it started out. I started out loan originating, and I left loan originating, and what it is whenever you're originating, you can charge
Oh yeah.
as many fees as you want as long as it fell under certain guidelines. I guess I didn't like. I had, I guess, a little bit too much integrity. I didn't like taking advantage of those situations. So I got out of loan origination and went into underwriting, right?
Right.
For a subprime mortgage company, right? Which I often speak about. I was a contributing factor to the bubble bursting. And so
bursting.
there was probably about 6 of us that are real good buddies of mine. And we worked for this company, a wholesale lending company, and we were underwriters. We had 3 investors that had offices in our office, and so basically we would get approvals from them on the spot.
Yeah.
And so we were closing loans. We'd get a complete file that morning, and we'd close it within like 4 hours later.
Yeah.
Wow.
And but yeah, it was a real nasty time for that whole industry, and there was a lot of regulation that took place and lasted about 9 seconds, and then it went back to doing what it was doing.
Yeah,
That was around 07, 08.
Yep.
It got real gross.
Yeah.
But the thing with Greystone was weird. Like I said, dude, we were writing loans, and these people were in desperate situations, and then they're calling us saying, "Hey, the bank's saying that the loans weren't funding for like a month."
Do you remember loan programs called Ninjas, or it was no income, no assets?
Oh yeah,
stated income, stated assets.
Yeah.
So there would be loans that I would get. They would have like a 770 credit score, great credit. One was a manager at Arby's. The co-borrower was like a supervisor at Arby's. Their credit score was good enough. We could state the income, and these loan officers would put down that they make $8,000 a month each of them. And you're like,
Wow.
what?
Yeah.
And then they were doing like a cash out refinance where the house is in Florida. So the house they bought it for $200,000 3 years previously, and it was worth $700,000 now. So they're going to take out $400,000 cash.
Wow.
And it's like, they're like, approve it. And it's like, no, they can't afford it. But like
it would, dude. Yeah.
it didn't matter.
We did several stated income loans. That's all so I did this when I was doing the Evansville Financial thing, and not Conseco so much, but Evansville Financial especially. That was the earlier days of when I was doing it with Chad. It was subprime lending. It was all subprime lending. I mean, people with stellar credit don't go to mortgage brokers. They go to the credit union, the bank. And so they were almost all, stated income loans. And yeah, man, I've seen a lot of stuff. I won't mention like names because some of this stuff has to be criminal. I had no guilt in it. But I've seen a lot of whiteout. I've seen a lot of copy and paste. I've seen a lot of stuff to make things happen that shouldn't happen. And every one of those situations, I guarantee you, those people got in so much trouble with that financially that it was the worst thing that anybody could. Nobody did them a service by doing that.
No.
They sell it as, I'm going to get you in this great house. And it's like, yeah, this great house is going to be awesome.
For how long?
For 3 months.
Yeah. See, and my thing was like, I don't want to put these, when I was a loan originator, I don't want to put these people in this position, like you're really, screwing them over, so like I'll go into underwriting, I'll have more control. And so then I have less control because basically the owners of the company who were buddies of mine, I would decline a loan, and within minutes they would come and hey, what's wrong with this? And you're like, end up approving it anyway. Like they're taking out $400,000 cash, and they don't have any. They work at Arby's, which is not a bad thing, but they're not able to afford the mortgage.
That it is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it was the way it was back then. It's just not like that anymore. I don't think it'd ever be like that again. And maybe I'm all wet from what I can tell, though. There's just so much more stringent. And requirements.
It's because of that.
It's because of that.
Like, hey, we can't let this ever happen again.
I don't think there's anything. Is there even such a thing as a stated income.
I don't believe
anymore.
so. If it is, you have to have like probably an 800 credit score or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you do watch, you should watch The Big Short. But at the end of it, it says they used to bundle up these loans and sell them, on Wall Street or whatever.
Absolutely.
And so they said it was called a CDO or something like that. But they said they did away with that, and within months they came up with a new thing, and it was the exact same thing, bundling up loans again, but they just called it different. At one point they were warehousing loans. Remember that? They were like, we're sending them to the warehouses. That's why they haven't funded. I had this one lady in Tennessee, and she was crying. That was the last loan I wrote. I was like, I'm done. And then it was like 2 weeks later, and that happened or whatever. And then Chad was like all of our paychecks bounced.
Oh yeah, that's what I said. Hey, when my first paycheck bounces, Jimmy bounces, and I was out.
Yeah,
I was done.
So we got in. We went in there and took a lot of the furniture. We were like, we're getting some, whatever we can get out of these people, because they were trying to get Chad to like package everything and send it back to him, and he was like, man, pay me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you owe me money, and they weren't even paying. It was a fun job though.
It was really easy money there for a while.
It was like hand over fist, and we were they literally had us working as underwriters, and we would voluntarily do it, but we would work 16, 17-hour days, they're all night long underwriting loans, and it
did blow up. It just went away.
The money was there, and then it was not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
But it was when you lived there. Is that what you were doing when your event? I'm going to call it an event because I want to let you do it. And we okay. Let me just tell you, before you got here, we did mention it a little bit, but I don't know if we pronounced it right and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't
you
think
did.
we did it justice.
So won't you kind of go into that a little bit, and then after that, man, I got that video queued up. I want to show that video.
Yeah. It was a few years back that they diagnosed me with being awesome, and so that I'm just kidding.
That'll come back.
No. So I was in Florida at the time, and I'd gotten married in 2010. And this occurred in June of 2011. Basically, the condition is called idiopathic transverse myelitis with a longitudinally extensive lesion.
We did not get that.
And so
we weren't even close.
Yeah. And so how this all played out basically was Steve Swartfager. I went to Swartfager's wedding in the end of May of 2011. And it was like a 15-hour drive. My wife at the time and I drove. And a lot of times whenever I drive long distances, you get a sciatic nerve. Your sciatic nerve will act up. So whenever we returned home, I got out of the car and I noticed my sciatic nerve's acting up is what it felt like. And then the next day it continued. And then the next day I had what felt like, it didn't feel like the sciatic nerve anymore. It felt like I had the flu, but in my leg. And it's kind of hard to put that in perspective, but like, how you get that achy feeling or whatever it was. It was actually in both my legs. And so that was on a Wednesday. Thursday came around. Friday went to work and ended up spiking a fever at work. Felt horrible. Had the worst headache of a headache that I can't even put into words. So that whole weekend I was in bed. Sunday, after having a headache that did not go away, I went to urgent care, which I would recommend never going to urgent care unless, it was. Yeah, right. So I went there and they asked a couple questions. I said I had been camping recently. So they thought I had Lyme disease. Maybe they prescribed me an antibiotic and some painkillers, right? And so having that bad of a headache, I took the painkillers. It did nothing for the headache. So I called the on-call physician. He said, if you had a headache that long, you need to go ahead and go to the ER. So went into the ER, ran blood work, couldn't find anything. He said, we're going to have to give you a lumbar puncture, a spinal tap. I'm like, okay. And that's one of the things that I feared. Like I had heard about people getting them and it's like, oh my gosh. So
it's awful.
Yeah. Luckily, like this guy was he was very, very skilled. And so basically he had a needle into the area where the lidocaine he was putting in, and then another needle. And he's like, anytime you feel anything, just let me know. And as soon as I did, he'd hit the lidocaine again. Yeah. And so he got that. And then he eventually came back and he's like, you got, your white cell count's elevated, and which indicates like meningitis or something like that. So he's like, I'm going to go ahead and it's probably it's safe to say that you probably have meningitis. I don't know if it's bacterial or viral. So they admitted me to the hospital. So this was at 4:00 in the morning on Monday morning. So I was in the hospital for 3 days on Wednesday. Couldn't do anything but lay there just in pain, like the head was hurting so bad. So then I had a neurologist that came in on Wednesday as it started to subside, and she started to do neurological testing on me, right? So she had me sit there and basically tilt my head back, close my eyes, and extend my arms, and then touch my nose. I could touch it on this side, but I could not find my nose with this hand. And to me, that was very frightening because, I mean, it's pretty simple. And so she said it could have been from the painkillers that you were on, the DeTalented and stuff like that. So as you're coming off of them, you'll probably, regain these, motor skills.
You have some real pain if they give you DeTalented.
Yeah. And the crazy thing was they would give me that DeTalented, and then like within minutes it would be back to that headache hurting again. And like, wow. And so the next day she came in, did the same testing again, same thing happened. And this time she noticed some weakness in this left leg. And she's like, could be from the, we're taught to trust doctors. So I'm going, you're the doctor, okay.
Yeah.
So Friday comes around and I go to use the restroom and I can't. Absolutely cannot go to the restroom. I can't pee. I'm like, whoa, why? What's going on?
But felt like you had to pee.
Oh, I had to bad. Yeah. But like it was, I just couldn't go. Like it was like there was a cork there, and I'm like, what is going on? So the nurse came in. I called her Nurse Ratchet, and this lady was just brutal. And she came in and she's like, well, if you don't go, I'm going to have to catheter. I'm like, if I could go, I would go,
Right.
So they kept, monitoring to see how full my bladder was getting. She's like, it's full. We have to catheterize you. So my mom and dad were at the hospital at the time, and they the nurse said, you might want to, take off while we do this. And I think they said they got down to the end of the hall and it sounded like a woman screaming. Like, they're like, was that him? I'm like, yeah, that was him.
Yeah.
And so
for a man, that's almost like having a baby, bro. That I get it.
At the time, and it was rough. And so, cause it's not supposed to go in that way. It's supposed to
Yeah.
And so anyway, she, that happened. And then they came in, did the neurological testing again, same thing. But this neurologist said, if we can get you to go to the restroom, we can probably send you home Sunday. And I'm like, okay, this sounds feasible. That sounds good. The next day, still continued to have the issues or whatever. Saturday night, the next night, I was going to take a shower, and I'd been in bed all week, so I was kind of weak. Walked into the shower, was coming out, and my parents were helping me just because I was, a little unsteady. So one had a hold of this arm, the other one had a hold of this arm just in case I fell. About 5 steps out of the shower, it was like they cut the strings on a puppet, and no function on my legs. And so like I had a bruise on the inside of my left bicep where my dad's thumb was, where he was holding on to me. Yeah. And it was there for probably, it seemed like about a month. But they're like, stand up. What are you doing? I was like, I can't. And like, that's dead weight, Sure. And so male nurse came in, they grabbed me and basically drugged me over to the bed and kind of slung me up on the bed. And then at that point, I don't recall a lot because there was kind of chaos, like doctors were coming in and stuff like that, because I was at that point, paraplegia had set in. I was paraplegic. So they rushed me. The general or the hospitalist, she came in and she said, oh, close your eyes and tell me when you feel this pinprick. And it was up until my rib cage before I felt it. And I'm like, so they rushed me in, gave me an MRI. And then that's when they had found that there was this lesion on my spinal cord, basically. And my immune system decided that it was going to attack my spinal cord. And it did that. And whenever it does that, so you've got like on this cord here, that's basically your spinal cord. The inside of this wire is going to be your spinal cord, and this protective coating on the outside is your myelin sheath. Right. Wait, and so what it did was it destroyed that myelin that protected the cord, and during that process, it caused a lot of inflammation. And whenever that inflammation and then the scarring, the lesion set in, it prevented any signals from being sent throughout my body at where the damage occurred. And that's where, you become paraplegic.
So that's when the diagnosis,
Yeah.
the actual correct diagnosis came through.
Yeah. They said you.
And how long was this from the beginning to there?
From when I felt the first symptom, let's see, it was the beginning of the week. Monday is whenever I'd really gotten back from Swordfigur's wedding. And so progressively throughout the week, I felt bad. Then the weekend came, and then it was that Sunday was when I finally went to the hospital and was admitted that Monday. So then the following week, I was in the hospital just with the impression that I had meningitis, some form of meningitis. And then it was that Saturday was when I basically become paraplegic. And so yeah, they diagnosed me with that condition. And so I remember very vividly the doctor coming in and telling me exactly what had occurred. And you can't really process it, but I said, so when will I walk again? When will I be able to feel my legs again? And she's like, you may never, we don't know yet. And so I remember like a crazy person, like just looking at her and just laughing, like I couldn't process it.
Like you're out of your mind.
Yeah. Like literally,
this is not happening.
Yeah, this isn't
right.
making sense. And so it was at that point, they basically said, we need to get you to, and luckily I had the Mayo Clinic, which was 5 minutes from where we were at. We were at a hospital, just like I can't remember the name of it, but it wasn't a very good hospital because they didn't have they didn't have the procedures in place to be able to treat me for that condition. And so that's what they said. They said, you need to get to the Mayo Clinic.
What is the treatment?
Initially what they'll do is they'll start you on, IV steroids to reduce the inflammation, prednisone, and to reduce the inflammation. And then at that point, really, it's just rehab and recovery, physical therapy. And so, but there is also a thing called it's called plasmapheresis. And basically, they take the plasma out of you and put new plasma in, which eliminates some of these antibodies that they believe are causing this attack that occurred. With it being idiopathic, they didn't have really they don't know why it happened. They know
essentially it's an autoimmune thing, right?
Yeah. The immune system attacked the spinal cord. So, and there are forms of that transverse myelitis that affect people differently. Like there's one form of it that's called neuromyelitis optica that is, it's really, it's prevalent in women. Men don't get it, which is just odd that it's so specific. But it can cause blindness. It can cause your you to be unable to breathe. They would have to intubate you. And, basically what they did was they said, you need to get to the Mayo Clinic. Now, as we're growing up, when you go to the doctor, you like to think that the hospital is looking out for your best interest, right? So if say, hey, we can't treat you, they put you in an ambulance and they rush you to another hospital where they can, and, they have it all coordinated and everything set up. And they came in, they said, you need to get to the Mayo Clinic. We're like, okay, so are you going to call them for us? And they're like, no, you have to call them and like what, book a room? Like, I don't understand what, like literally that. Yeah. And so like we literally, my wife and my family had tried to call the Mayo Clinic and just say, this is what we have. And they said, we don't have any rooms available. Literally, like no rooms. Like, so we were perplexed because we were thinking that they would take care of that. Like, are you just gonna? So what they did. Now this is interesting. Okay, this is where these things start to come into play, where it really makes you question what the heck's going on, in some of these hospitals. So I was in the hospital because I was told I didn't have no rooms at the Mayo Clinic. So I remained in this other hospital, and for 3 days I laid in a bed and like just did this very remedial physical therapy that they would come in with these rubber bands and put them on my leg and
not doing much.
No, not doing much.
They were just putting something on paper to show they were not really any effective treatment.
Yeah. And so basically what it was almost comical, but the type of therapy that they were expecting was going to make a difference. But yeah, you're right. They were just doing it, to have something down. But let's see okay. So I was in the hospital for 2 days after my diagnosis, just kind of laying there, kind of waiting, like Mayo was going to mysteriously get a bed or something like that. So laying in bed for 2 days, right? That's $13,000 a day, basically, for laying in that bed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I watched, like on this third day, my family, they were in the room with me, and this neurologist came in that hadn't saw me before. And this is how it happened. And this is verbatim. This, I remember so vividly. This doctor came in, and I'm always watching and observing people. And so I'm laying in the bed, and I'm watching this neurologist stand there with, his clipboard and stuff like that. And he's watching these other doctors come in and out, nurses and things like that, because once they diagnose you with, you got a thyroid levels or whatever it is, like all these different doctors coming in, they're kind of coming in and they're pillaging essentially, because once they step through that door to treat you, they charge you.
Of course.
And so this neurologist, I watched him watch everybody, right? I watch all these doctors and everything. And so finally it was just him in there with my family. And he walked over to the door. He looked down the hallway both ways, closed the door very quietly. And he walked over and he said, "Why the hell are you guys here?" And we're like, "Because we're told the Mayo Clinic doesn't have a room for us." And he goes, "I want you to, whenever the next nurse that comes down, tell her that you want a case manager. You want your case manager to come down here, and you want an ambulance transfer to the Mayo Clinic. They will not deny you, at their ER or whatever it is. So you will be admitted. They have rooms." He's like, "I did my residency at the Mayo Clinic. I know." And we're just kind of like, so I've been here.
Nobody told me that at all.
Not at all. He goes, "I don't know why you're here." He goes, "Do not," he goes, "Do not tell them that I told you that, because I don't want," and he made like a joke.
He didn't want the heat.
So finally a good doctor came in the room.
He goes, I'm dumbfounded. He said, he made it like a joke. He's like, "Don't tell them, because I want to be able to go to their Christmas party or something like that."
Right.
We all had a big laugh and stuff, but we knew at that point, like, okay, so that's essentially what we did. It was that, or a traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury hospital, basically, that specialized in people who are paraplegic, quadriplegic, things like that. So I ended up going to that hospital for a couple of weeks, and then ended up going to the Mayo Clinic to get this procedure done that was called plasma exchange, plasmapheresis, however you want to call it. But that was a turning point in my body starting to really recover, as far as like really seeing results and things like that. Because before that, it was up to a point where I was going through physical therapy and I was like plateauing, and there was nothing was, I would like become stagnant,
Not moving. How long was it before you got that?
Able to walk again?
The treatment? No.
Oh, the treatment. About a month and a half.
So a month and a half, you're down.
Month and a half, I'm in physical therapy, and it's like a full-time job. Like I didn't go home. Like I was in.
You were in
inpatient
care for a month and a half.
Yeah, and I was I was actually at one hospital or another for 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
I knew it went on for a while.
Yeah.
So you were not at home at all for 4 months.
I went to the hospital that Sunday, and then I didn't go back. I wasn't home until like September.
Wow.
That was in June.
And that whole time, you and your family and your wife at the time was all pretty much holed up in the hospital.
Everybody, once I got to the rehabilitation hospital, then it's, my parents finally went back home, and then they would come in every week or so, because they were able to fly free. My sister works for the airlines. And so somebody was always there. But the thing, during that time is whenever you have a lot of time to self-reflect and process a lot of things. And one of the things, the most important thing that I learned is that and maybe we're told this as kids, whatever it is, but like, you have no idea how powerful your mind is. You have no clue how powerful your mind is. So I remember, I had two neurologists that had come in at different times during the week, and both of them had said, we don't know if you're going to walk again. You need to prepare for life, in a wheelchair. And after the second one, my dad, who was never really big on like encouraging, he always wanted the best, but he wasn't like a rah type, whatever. And
he was fantastic, though.
yeah,
like,
he was.
Yeah,
he was. And but he came in and he goes, look at me. And I looked up at him, I'm down. And he's like, you're going to walk again. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Then he said that?
He goes, you're going to walk again.
Yeah.
I go, yeah, whatever. And he goes, hey, I said, look at me. So I looked up at him and I was kind of like, not really there or whatever. And he goes, I said, effing look at me. And I looked at him and he goes, you're going to walk again. And at that moment, I believed him.
Yeah.
And that is a big thing too, believe. Because
yeah.
if you don't believe you can do something, then, and so like at that moment, like my mind immediately switched gears to, I'm going to be in a wheelchair, to, no, I believe I'm going to walk again. When you believe something, I mean, it'll manifest. And
I can't imagine. Can you see what a bad bum deal? It's not like he got an injury.
Yeah.
Like he literally
car
was,
accident or something. No.
Yeah.
Like fine to paralyzed. What a frustrating situation.
So then there was never like a prognosis by the doctors like, yeah, you'll be fine. It was, hey, you may never walk again or you will never walk again.
Yeah, it was
somewhere there in between.
It leaned on, you probably aren't going to walk in. If you do, it's going to be very difficult, just preparing you for it. Because a big thing too is that, okay, I understand the doctors have to kind of CYA, right? They don't want to tell you something and then you not reach, that. But to say you're probably not or you might not, there's a different way you could phrase it, and they do it as best they can. But like it should be, there's a good chance you can walk again, but you're really going to have to work your tail off.
Yeah, it's
going to
be a long road,
right.
but you're going to get back.
Because my mentality when they told me that was in the dumps.
Yeah.
Until my dad, basically told me no, and so, but there have been a ton of people that I interact with through the YouTube channel that when they see my video, people reach out to me all across the globe. But there have been people that I've interacted with, like on Facebook, a couple of the groups that are basically saying that they were told they're not going, they might not walk again, and they give up. They accept it and they just remain in the chair.
They just lay there.
Yeah. And so I'll talk to them and like, wow, like it just, it's just words, but that's how strong an impact doctors have on us. During our life as we grow, we learn things from doctors. We're taught to trust them. We're taught to believe, but that's not necessarily the case. I mean, you have to be able to think outside the box, and you have to be able to understand and do the research and things like that, or just believe that they're wrong.
People and
they're human,
therefore you can't put, I've learned in 50 years that, I love people. I love my friends. I love everybody, but we're all human. And so to be honest, you really can't be, there are people you can have confidence. Obviously I've got confidence in you. We've been together for so long, but you can let me down because
humans fail.
Humans fail. Yeah. So, I think that was a big thing. But I will say, when you have that, you're right. We have so much confidence in doctors. We take it for face value, whatever they say. Mm-hmm. And I agree with like the power of a human mind. Mm-hmm. I believe God put that in us. It's a strength. And I do believe that you can self-heal. I believe that, and I obviously believe that God's involved in that, but I also think that, I think you're so right, man. I think state of mind is so important. And so if the doctor crashes your state of mind before you ever even start working on it, there
was a point in time where, I began each night I was in that hospital, and you go to sleep, alone, paralyzed, and you think weird things like, what if a fire breaks out? What am I going to do? Well, that's another story but basically what it is as I started to fall asleep each night, I would say out loud sometimes till I fell asleep, or 100, 200 times, whatever it was, I would just close my eyes and repeat over out loud, you're going to walk in, you're going to walk in. And I would do it every single night. And your body, you start to believe it, and then everything starts to sync back up, that as soon as that spinal cord, as soon as the inflammation goes down and things like that, all of those tiny, fibers have to, reconnect, all those nerves and things like that. Once they reconnect, you start to feel a little bit here and there, but like it takes so long, but if you don't believe that those things are going to happen, because if you sit there, Jimmy, if you tell your foot to move, your foot's going to move, and whenever you're paralyzed and you tell your foot to move and it doesn't move, it's hard to process that. But like as those nerves start to, by telling your foot to do that, you're sending the signal. It's just not getting there. So it's constantly, kind of, it's therapy, I guess, essentially. But eventually I went to, after I got out of the Mayo Clinic and they did that plasmapheresis, and I got back to, there was a moment when I got back to the rehabilitation hospital, and I was floating because I was like, I got this plasmapheresis, and I started to notice, I felt some changes.
Real quick, just a question. Can you explain a little bit, like, what is that procedure? What does it?
Whenever I went, I got to Mayo, they put a port in my neck. I guess it's the carotid or something.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And so they put a port in there, and basically, they have a machine, and I remember there were a couple of glass vials of I guess plasma
juice.
Juice. And so they take out that plasma, and it was cold. I remember going in, but I remember now, and to say a little bit about the Mayo Clinic, like as far as our healthcare is concerned, we've got all our health institutions and things are basically compromised by venture capitalists, things like that. The Mayo Clinic is private, but like that in my opinion should be the basis for the healthcare system in this country, because it's such a well-oiled machine, and just the way that they instantly give you hope when you walk through those doors. If you've never seen the Ken Burns documentary about the Mayo Clinic, you should watch it. It's incredible. But I mean, just leaving that place, I felt like, oh, okay. So once I got back to the rehabilitation hospital, it was like after a couple of days, I don't know why I didn't process it before, but this is what caused me to realize that this physical therapy, these 2 months that I've been in there so far, have not been to get me to walk again. They've been teaching me how to live life in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And like you're going through the problem, but like you're just like so amped up at, trying to accomplish these goals that they're setting for you. And then I remember they came in, they said, "Hey, do you want to come down to the physical therapy director's office? We're going to size you for your wheelchair and get it ordered." And I'm like,
wait a second,
I don't want it.
I'm like, "Hey, nobody say anything about that." I go, "I got this one that you guys let me borrow. I'm just going to borrow." And they're like, "No, this is going to be the one that you're going to have for the rest of your life." And I'm like, that's when it clicked. I was like, So they went and sized me. They put the order in, they're like, "Your wheelchair will be ready in like, I don't know, like 3 months or something." I'm like, wow. Until then you'll use this one. I'm like, okay. Immediately went back, and I had this one guy, his name's Tim Fall, and he's Dr. Tim Fall now, but he's a physical therapist, probably like 5'4", redheaded kid, but like a drill sergeant. And if you have a physical therapist that's not a drill sergeant or has a drill sergeant mentality, they're not a good physical therapist. Right. And so I went back and I said, I basically tested out of everything you've given me. As far I can cook, I can transfer from car, all this stuff.
Occupational therapy.
Yeah. I go from moving forward, I want you to just get me to walk again. And he's like, and it was like, he goes, okay, like I had to tell him that, but like when you tell a physical therapist that, I wasn't prepared for what he was going to do.
Getting ready to do. Yeah.
And so, but it was, man, he pushed me to the limit, but like the goal was when I was going to get discharged, I was like, I'm going to walk out of here. And I was so close. But I didn't walk out. I wheeled out, and we were in a condo, and it was on the second floor, my wife and I remember like, how am I going to get up these stairs? So I had a buddy, his name is Brandon Bird, and he and his wife let me and my wife stay with them for like a month. He built me a ramp, going up to his house and everything, because I couldn't get up those stairs. And then finally my wife, she was like, "Let's go try it." And I, used my arms and my butt and scooted up that condo. And then, but once you overcome it, once you say, okay, I can do that, then it's just the next step, And it's such mental game really. And the thing about during that recovery thing is whenever you're in recovery and all of a sudden you have a week where, like you really see some improvements, right? And then you'll plateau, and you don't realize that you'll plateau, and like all of a sudden you don't see any gains for just like working out, I guess.
Yeah.
And so you don't see any gains. And then what I would do is, because copious amounts of prednisone will make a grown man a lunatic and make you cry and make you do all kinds of stuff. And so I would lose it, like this is all I'm going to get out of it. I'm not going to get any better. At that point, you have to rest for a few days, just absolute rest. And then go back to it, and then you'll start to see the gains again. But like there is a plateau point. And so that happened 5 times where I would just melt down, and so after the 3rd time, I was like, I just need to relax and rest. And then sure enough, you'd start to see more improvements.
How long was, just out of curiosity, was the whole process from start to where you kicked it? In that video that you have, there's we're gonna show that.
Yeah. There's a point. It's towards the end, and I'm there's uneven parallel, or there's parallel bars that I'm walking in, and you'll see me like those were the first steps that I took unassisted since my paralysis, and I believe that was in, it might have been close to October, and so once those steps happened, and then it just. I remember coming home for the fall festival. My mom and my cousin went down there. They're like, let's go home. We'll take you home for the fall festival. I was still in a wheelchair. But I would just, I don't know if it was adrenaline or what, but like I was at my parents' house on Margie Beth, and all of a sudden I was just like, in that video, you see me walking around in my parents' house, and it's like, those were like some of the other, I'm like, and you couldn't hear it, but I was going, I'm doing it, and I don't know how I'm doing it. I don't know how I'm doing it. And so, but then I would not be able to do it again for like 3 or 4 days, and then it would happen again. And so like, it's just those nerves and everything reconnecting and all that stuff. But yeah, it was so June, July, August, September. So it was like mid-October before I was really probably at the point where, I was self-sustainable. I was, I really didn't need much assistance. I'll tell you a real funny thing is whenever you go into get your, I wasn't able to drive. And so I was like, I need to be able to drive. And you go into a driver's ed type thing. It wasn't the DMV, but I remember walking in there with my walker, and they're like, yeah, how can we help you? And I was like, I'm here to take a driving test. And they're like, the guy was like, and I was like, I'm here to take a driving test. Yeah. And he's like, oh. And so I explained everything to him, but they've got these little foot pedal tests, and my feet are strong. My ankles are strong. It's just supporting my weight. So he did that. And he's like, oh, your feet are strong. He's like, yeah. So we went out to the highway and stuff, and he was like, just take it easy to start out with. And I'm like, yeah, no problem, but it was all fine.
So you know what, being somebody who's ignorant on it, how did that work? Did you lose your license, or? No,
I didn't even need to be recertified, but like for insurance purposes. And I also wanted to just make sure that I had an expert that said, yeah, you can do,
okay.
But like, yeah, there didn't lose license or anything. Okay. So, but I wonder about that. 'Cause it's like, if you are, say you have a permanent injury, if you have a complete injury and you're paralyzed for life, there has to be some modifications that have to be done, I would assume. Like you can't just have your driver's license and just go do that. I would assume that there's something in place that
it's and you hear crazy stuff. Like, man, to be honest, I don't know if you ever knew the guy. I had a roommate when I moved into some ghetto house with a bunch of guys when I was 19 or whatever.
DeTalented?
Yeah, right.
No.
Southside? Yeah. But I had a friend, one of the guys that lived there, his name was Darren, and you probably heard the story. He went to he had a motorcycle wreck and become paraplegic. And then he was at a Bengals game in Cincinnati, and he was trying to drive with his cane or with his whatever he had that, pushing it with the cane. Yeah. Well, he ran a crosswalk. He killed a few people. He passed away a few years ago from, that injury years later after the injury, but he spent the rest of his life in prison because of that. Because he was with another guy, he was drinking, he was doing that. He could drive a car that was equipped for him. Right. But he was trying to drive a normal car. I know that's unrelated, but
no, it's an interesting thing because he may have believed, I mean, I can do this,
Yeah.
but like, or just like, I don't care because I'm already hurt. I mean, it's not going to hurt him,
Yeah.
but like he hurt somebody else, and that's so that's a bad thing. But yeah, it's just the whole process really, it was just an awakening. It was eye opening. I remember one point being in the hospital, and so like still, low confidence, that I was ever going to do this. And I remember it was like a dream, like it was almost like it didn't happen. But this Japanese doctor, he was in infectious disease or something like that. I didn't know him, but he happened to just be walking by, and he just stopped in my room. Like I'd never seen him before. And he just started asking me some questions, and like was touching on my feet and stuff like that or whatever. And I was, I stressed him. I was like, yeah, I'm just really scared that I'm not going to walk again or whatever. And he's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Like, and he said it with such confidence. I was like,
you believe that?
Yeah. I was like, this guy knows.
He transferred. Yeah. Transferred it.
That positive energy, know, and it is a very powerful thing to be able to instill that into someone, to get them to believe something, because you do that with a person in regards to anything, they can accomplish it.
Well, you're restoring hope to somebody
absolutely
who's kind of hopeless.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine. I can imagine. I know that I would be hopeless. I would be like, what? And I'll be and that's what we were. So we watched the video a few minutes ago before you came in, and like I said, I want to show it when we get to that. But
sure,
it was like, what? Like we were both like,
I was inspired.
Yeah,
that was
and I'm like, even the way that I put that video together, like it happened so quick. I was just like taking a bunch of clips that I had, but like even like I had it definitely wasn't strategic like how I put it together, but like there's certain phrases in the song, there's certain words in the song, a line or something like that lines up with what I was doing, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I did that. It was just
put it was a good song choice.
Yeah.
Oh, that was perfect.
Can't go wrong with it. It's Foo Fighters, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Foo Fighters.
Dave, man, Dave's on it.
Yeah, dude. And it was and then real quick, so there was a girl in Canada that her mom reached out to me. She had that condition I was telling you about that affects just the female gender. She was 16 years old. She was an aspiring figure skater, and Pam Lefevre is the mom's name. But she reached out to me. She said, my daughter, has been afflicted with this condition. I saw your video, and she's like, can you help us? Give us advice, something. And I said, first and foremost, find the best healthcare in your country. Find the absolute, spare no expense, find the best healthcare that can treat this, her condition. And then once you get to that point, I'll tell you, if you want to know what to expect out of her, I can't say for sure, but like this is what I experienced as far as the emotions and things like that. And so I told her she's going to have plateaus, where she's going to do this. And so she, I mentioned, oh gosh, what was I getting ready to say? I had a brain fart, but like when she came back to me later, the mom said, she goes, you were correct. She's like, she had all of those meltdowns, and she's like, but I do want to send you a video that we recently made, and it's kind of like yours. It's a recovery video, and so I remember watching this video, and it showed her, she was intubated, she couldn't breathe on her own, and so progressively she was getting better, and then at the end, the last clip was her on the ice, and she did like a double axel or something like that. Wow. I was like, wow. And that was
awesome. And
I realized at that point, I'm like, because the mom thanked me and everything, she's like, without you, the encouragement, things like that. Cause I stressed to her, the difficulty that's going to be associated, because her condition was much more severe than mine, but the girl's now a police officer in Canada. And I'm like, wow. So, just the fact that, I know what I was going to say. I said, if you have family members, that are going to come see her in the hospital, things like that, if they are criers, if they come in and they, keep them out of her room, don't, because she may see that and she might see it as a negative. She might see it as, oh no, there's no hope, they're crying or whatever. I said, so just eliminate that,
all that negative stuff.
And she said she did that. And And at that point I was like, I really probably need to try to work more with people, be an advocate or something. And so I've been trying to do that. Jamie Johnson's daughter, her husband just came down with a condition like mine. It's called Guillain-Barré, where you're temporarily paralyzed. It's a less serious condition, but I believe he's still paralyzed. Like, I believe it's from like the shoulders down. But
oh my.
Yeah, Billy reached out to me and told me,
I think we know a girl that had that, the one you're talking about. I know she was fine, and all of a sudden she had an autoimmune disease attack her.
Yeah.
And she got to where she couldn't walk or anything, and she went blind.
Oh.
And didn't you say that was a symptom earlier?
It's called
And so she's back. She can walk and everything again now, but she still struggles with her vision. Like her vision went really, really bad.
Yeah. You had to fix your optic nerves.
Yeah. It was crazy because she was the same way. She had like a young baby and like all of a sudden it just hit her out of nowhere, and she didn't know what was wrong. They thought she had Lyme disease, and they thought all these things, and it turned out it was just this autoimmune thing that happened.
Yeah.
So then in your case, I mean, is it 100%? Are you 100%? Are you like you were before this happened?
No. So, no, so typically with a person, from what I've read, I don't want to sound like I'm a doctor. I know what I'm talking about, but like, typically with spinal cord injuries, you'll have, conditions that most people are affected with, and that's your bowel, your bladder, and then like, sexual function, things like that. And so those three, and I'll talk about whatever, but like those are three that affected me. Some people have it, where they're not able to control their restroom things. Mine is not, it's the opposite. I can't go at times, and so, as far as, so I take those three things that I have issues with, and basically I made it kind of a number up. I said I made a 97% recovery. Each one of those would be like 1%. But like, the interesting thing about that is because there is that lesion on the spinal cord, which will never be fully healed. I have a different reaction to food, and like, so if we all went and ate a steak, you guys would be like, oh man, that was a good steak. I would be like, I would stiffen up like, because of that red meat, like it's just it causes inflammation within the body. And that's one thing that my neurologist at Mayo said. She goes, you're going to have to change your diet. You're going to have to try to go all organic. You're going to try to eliminate a lot of your processed foods and things like that, because your body will not, anything that causes inflammation, you will feel it. Like, and it's the truth. Like if I eat sugar, it's painful. But the first couple of years after I moved back here, I started a garden, and I found all foods that I could grow that were high in anti-inflammatory properties. And I bought a cold pressed juicer, and I just started juicing those things, and I would drink it. And like, I got off of 3 different medications that helped with nerve pain and things like that.
Just changing your diet,
just helping, those foods that are high.
So do you not eat meat now?
Not too often, but when I do, if it's grass fed, something like that, it always helps. But like, as long as, and you get so used to it also, like you just kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
Like
so what about like chicken and fish and that you eat that stuff?
Yeah. So fish is especially good because it's just high in your, in your omegas and things like that. Chicken, those typically don't cause a lot of inflammation, but as processed foods, man, that's bad stuff. Like,
yeah. So check this out, man. I don't even know if you know this, because like I said, it's been so long since we could see each other, but my baby, he's 21. He just turned 21. His name's Sam. Mm-hmm. He's 6'6". He's a giant.
He's a little baby.
He's a giant.
Yeah.
He's a giant, but he's got a disorder. He's a phenylketonuria. So if you ever look on like a pack of gum that you're chewing or whatever, sugarless gum,
right,
it'll say warning phenylketonuria. This contains aspartame.
Okay. Aspartame,
what he's got is called PKU, and he's not supposed to eat protein. He lacks the enzyme that can break down protein. He's doing very poorly on his diet right now. He eats awful. But for years, until he got older to where we don't control his diet, like he was a vegetarian. And that was one of the things, like, I was just real honest about, like, as soon as he was diagnosed, they were like, it's a good idea. A lot of families just all go vegetarian. I was like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. Right. But, so it's crazy.
Protein's a building block for like your muscles and things like that. So he can't take like protein powders or anything.
No. So he had a special formula, that was made, and it was pure protein, but it had the enzyme that he can't break down. It removed from it.
Okay.
So it's not like actual animal protein, which is the best for you if you're healthy.
Right.
It was like a processed protein with that removed. So what happens is, I think it's called Trilipid. It's been so long since we've been to any appointments or anything. He's an adult now, but what would happen literally is, so a lot of the people in our age group and our parents' age group who ended up mentally retarded, and I don't use that word.
Right.
People who, I'm talking like mentally.
Yeah,
so
literally.
That's what it was, undiagnosed. They had that. And then, because what that enzyme does is, if your body can't break it down, is it sets on the brain and causes damage. And so a lot of the people, when they were younger, so what happens is when they get older and they start eating stuff, it really doesn't do as badly. But when they're kids and their brains are developing, that enzyme will set on their brain and actually retard their brain from functioning right. We were always really lucky. Sam ended up, he's super smart,
right?
And ended up, or he doesn't have any issues like that.
So if he eats protein, say he eats a steak, then what happens to the?
Well, that's the thing. It's not like an immediate thing. It's a buildup.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they would say, well, you just should never do this, and they were like, if you raise him to not eat it, they told us they will. He will try it. You just know he's going to.
Yeah.
But they
don't push the red button.
Yeah. But they insisted, but he won't like it. It'd be weird to him.
He won't miss it.
Yeah.
And he has tried steak, and he doesn't
like
it.
red meat.
No.
He loves chicken. He loves seafood.
Okay.
And he's not shy about it.
So if he eats red meat, then that protein will accumulate. Like the body doesn't process everything. It remains in his body. It doesn't break it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so his levels will go up. And now what happens is at some point it became part of the newborn screen when a baby's born. When they prick their heel when a baby's born, and they tested it. So Sam was 8 days old. We were at home, and Riley Hospital called us and like, hey, you need to come here. Your son's got a disease. And we're like, what?
Wow.
But anyway, that's so going back down to how diet affects everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm not surprised. And I'll tell you now, like, I struggle really badly. I got diabetic neuropathy in my feet, and it hurts.
Yeah.
My feet always hurt. And so
you don't take gabapentin, do you?
I don't. Good. I don't take any drugs.
Good.
Yeah.
Man,
so I'm trying to I want to do it with diet and all that, but man, diabetes is a whole different animal. And there's that whole, job issue and insurance thing that happens. So it's just what it is. But regardless, I didn't mean to pull off your story.
No.
Because I mean, dude, it's so good. And like I said, man, I really want to. Let's show the video.
Let's
I want to show the video because it's so good. Like I said, dude, it's Rocky like.
It really is.
And the interesting thing too, like you'll see in that video, like certain clips, you'll see where I'm like, it looks like I've been injected with like I'm a balloon, and that prednisone will swell. You just swell up, like it just it's incredible. Like.
No, I know. I've had to do a lot of prednisone. So a couple of years ago, I decided to go back to the gym, and I lost like 100 pounds, and I got like, I don't want to say I got jacked because I did not, but
you got in shape.
I got pretty jacked for a 47-year-old man that had not worked out in years. But I had a buddy that started coming to church, and he was like, he's a monster.
Yeah.
I was literally like walking out of the gym on my first day, and he was walking in, and I was like, I want to work out with you. And he's like, be here tomorrow at this time. And like now he's one of my best friends. And,
nice.
Now I don't work out anymore because he had a heart attack. And
gosh.
So mild, he's fine. But the doctor was like, can't lift heavy no more. Dude, this dude was lifting like 225 more than the NFL got. 53 reps, dude. I got it on video. 53 reps, 225, 53 reps. And I'm talking about
combine stuff.
Perfect. Yeah, he beat the combine scores. Yeah. But I love him, but he's sawed off, short. He's built to bench, right? And
little T-Rex arms like that.
Yeah, dude. He's awesome. He's he's literally one of my favorite people. Jim, we love his name's Adam. He's just a great guy, man. But and I'll tell you what I loved about him. This is unrelated, but I worked out with him all that time, and I'll tell you, once you get out of shape and old, and dude, going to the gym's intimidating.
Terrifying.
Especially because a lot of the people in there ridicule fat people, people that are trying to do better.
Why don't you think I don't go?
Yeah. And dude, Adam was always like, Adam would tell people, Adam would stop that. He was like, he'd be like, man, someone's there trying to get better.
You have to start
somewhere. Usually you think of these jack dudes that are so arrogant. He's just like the most humble, nicest guy ever, man. And I was just so, There's
a guy on TikTok, his name's Joey Swole, and he people who make fun of other people in gyms that happen to get it on tape, clips of it or whatever, and they post it like shaming somebody, and he's like, do better, It's really cool.
For sure. Well, man, let's check this out. And dude, I think I think people are going to love this, and I bet there'll even be some wet eyes in this. So let's check it out. Dude.
So good.
I know that, dude. It really is good, man.
I hope it inspires others to just
how could it not
stay focused and yeah.
Does that seem real? Does that seem like you're watching a movie, or do you relive that every time you watch the?
Each time I feel like I'd get a different, maybe a different perspective, or maybe I'll pick up on something different, or one scene might trigger something. Sometimes it'll sometimes I get emotional, which is odd because you wouldn't think that you would, but like sometimes it's like, yeah, it reminds you like how delicate things are, and like how they can be taken in an instant, not even in a car crash. Just
life is fragile.
Like you said, man, you literally were fine, and then you don't even know what caused. I mean, do they have any idea what caused the lesion on your spinal cord?
No. Well, the attack, the autoimmune attack is what caused that, but what caused the attack, they don't know. That's what's idiopathic. It's typically a virus that caused it, which, I was running a fever, like a 103 fever, and that whole weekend, and had this headache, but for some reason, it obviously got into my spinal serum, basically is where those white or those antibody or those white, what is it? The
white blood cells.
Yeah, white blood cells showed up in my spinal serum. So obviously that indicated some sort of, infection or something in the spinal area, spinal cord or whatever, which is typically encephalitis or meningitis or something like that. Yeah. And the weird thing is too, so, sometimes people will catch this transverse myelitis early, right? And so before the paralysis even hits. And so one of the things that I've talked to a few doctors, Robbie Evans, a couple other guys, but like they will, when the lady was doing the neurological testing, which indicated that something was amiss, and then all of a sudden you lose the ability to void or to go to pee. You lose that ability. Those are all associated with some sort of neurological issue. So some people had said you probably should have had an MRI at that point. And I will say that doctor, the entire time she was doing all this testing, she was getting ready to leave Saturday with her husband to go on a cruise to the Virgin Islands. And so she was less than focused on, like picking up on, oh, hey, let's get an MRI done instead. And so you question those things, but at the time you trust them because
because it's your only choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And speaking of only choice, one of the things people talk about, like when they say, it's amazing what you did. It's amazing. And I don't discount it. And I certainly appreciate when people say that, but like, it really is a fight or flight mentality. Like I didn't have an option. So it's like the work that you put into it, obviously, like, and it means a lot to have people say, man, that's great that you did that. But like my literal brain goes, I didn't have an option. I didn't have a choice.
Your choice was, you did.
Yeah,
your choice was to sit
yeah.
down or stand up.
Absolutely.
And you're like, I'm going to stand up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, like, even after watching that video, you can't help but like the steps to get up in the studio suck.
I was going to say, yeah.
Like,
I'm winded after I walk up those
yeah.
stairs.
I can walk up them once fine. The second time, I'm like, man, my quads are burning, So I was like, even when you just come up the steps, I'm like, man, look at that, man. Because this cat couldn't, and I remember, like, I remember it happening and being like, what is going on? Because I remember they did like a benefit cook at Wesselman to play cornhole and all that stuff.
Yep.
And I remember when it was going all down, and then I was just like, man, what? I was just so. It was just one of them things where it's like, well, that's I don't know anybody, that, because like I said, I've got friends who've been hurt and who have been injured and had stuff like that. But just to hear, hey, you heard from Bub? No, well, he just felt paralyzed all of a sudden.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And
and I'm getting most of my news from Bear.
Sure, yeah. There's no hyperbole there. Not at all. The interesting. So like, I had a younger cousin, a couple of years born, and she had born with cerebral palsy, and so she had a very difficult time walking. By the time she was 3, she had like dozens of surgeries. So, but she has a normal life, married, kids, and struggles to walk, but like still she gets around. But I used to always have this fear. Like seeing that, like it was, I never talked about it, but I was like, I would hate to be paralyzed. I would hate to be paralyzed. It wasn't a debilitating fear, but it's almost like, I can justify things, but like, it's almost like the universe saying, all right, listen, this is something that, is potentially affecting you. You think about it. Let's test you, whatever it is. I mean, it's probably just a virus that caused it or whatever, but who's to say that, I wasn't tested to see how I would come out of it, to overcome my fears or whatever, and I always like to try to, associate those types of things and make sense of them. And sometimes I'll do that, but, there have been a lot of signs that I've gotten that, where there are fears and that you have in life, and you're challenged, you're put to the test, and like it's just a matter of whether you overcome it or not. And I would have been the last person that would have thought that I would have overcome paralysis.
Dude, I honestly, I absolutely agree.
I was a lazy person.
I think I think God puts tests on us all the time, man. And even me, I'll tell you right now, man, one of my biggest struggles is like patience. I suck, bad. I'm not patient. So I'll go into things just with like a bad attitude and knowing it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Like the other day we were flying home from Florida, dude. We were flying home from Orlando. And bro, there was a problem with the plane. They pulled us off. Then they left us off for about an hour, put us back on. And dude, we sat in an 87-degree plane for 4 hours before it took off, right? Wouldn't let us off the plane. Oh. They were pretty much like, hey, by law, we can keep you on here 4 hours. And I'm ready to Hulk out.
45 minutes.
Yeah. You seen that episode where the Hulk gets in the spaceship on Thor Ragnarok or whatever, man? He's just going nuts. Dude, I was ready to just go crazy. I got my family in there and they're like, just behave, just don't do it. But I just don't have the ability in me. I'm like, what are you kidding me? This is crazy.
The one way to get off would be to get thrown off,
So I literally asked, but I ask God all the time, God, I need help with my patience. And I regret every time I ask him that. Because I guarantee you, the second I ask him, he's going to say, okay. Yeah. And something is going to, just like that is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it just always seems to, man. And it's such a, and I'll be honest, from my assessment, usually I fail those tests. I'm like, okay, now I got another one. It's going to have to come.
Fail the test, they keep coming, right?
Yeah,
right.
That's right, man.
Until you pass it, it's almost like, like the test we felt life, whether we ascend to the next, were either of your dads in the military?
My dad was.
Did he go to Vietnam?
My dad my dad was lucky. My dad was in during Vietnam, but he got stationed in Germany and the island of Crete.
Okay.
And the worst thing that happened to my dad in the Army is he was eating and he thought what he was eating was good. And he found out on the island of Crete that one of the things they ate all the time was puppy dog. Yeah. And so he was eating dog. That was but I tease him. I'm like, dude, that's the worst thing to happen to you in the military. And then Jimmy's dad will tell you he was not in the military, but he was part of the Salvation Army.
Yeah, he maintains that.
So with Denny, real quick. So when he passed in January 22, this will give you an indication of where our healthcare is at, right? And this is all the truth, right? So Pops was in Vietnam. He was exposed to Agent Orange, and so as a result of Agent Orange exposure, he developed diabetes and atrial fibrillation, which atrial fibrillation can lead to stroke, things like that. So we all got COVID at Christmas, January 2021. Pops got it and ended up going to the hospital. And while he was in the hospital, he deteriorated, from the COVID. Well, he ended up having a stroke. And that's what caused, that's what took him, basically no brain activity and things like that. So had him on life support for 3 days. And then after that, we made the decision, Now, in order for, once he passes, in order for my mom to continue to get surviving spouse benefits on his death certificate, it needs to specify that the cause of death was attributed to his atrial fibrillation or something, or diabetes based on the Agent Orange. So we went down to the VA, me and my mom, and we're going to get it set up so she could continue getting those benefits. And the guy at the VA said, you can't, he's like, we're not going to be able to process this because his cause of death is showing that it's COVID pneumonia as his cause of death. And so we're like, okay. He's like, but typically just have them change it, get with the funeral director and they'll get with the hospital and they'll change it. He's like, I've seen it happen a few times. And as you know, with COVID, hospitals would receive certain
benefits.
Benefits. They would get paid in certain ways, a myriad of ways. So the funeral director contacted the hospital. Well, he got back with me. His name is Johnny Meyer. He's with what is it?
Boone.
Yeah,
he's not there anymore. Jordan owns it now.
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah.
Jordan's awesome.
Johnny and my dad were real good buddies, and so he got with me. He goes, we called the hospital, and the doctor refuses to change the cause of death. So I talked to Rob. I was talking with Robbie Evans. He was kind of following me. He's like, that's BS. He's like, your dad died from, and the technical term, the ischemic, whatever, but a stroke. And he's like, your dad died from a stroke. And he's like, they need to change that. So I called the hospital, couldn't get through to the doctor, called the doctor's office, left him a message, another message, wouldn't return it, and still refused to change my dad's cause of death. Now, I could understand it if it was, like if he did die from COVID, I could understand that, but he refused to change it. So my mom would not get the spousal benefits. So this guy is it's an integrity thing. So he's choosing for the hospital to get paid by leaving COVID on there, because that's what they need, and not, kind of screw my mom over. So I can't think of what her name is. It's Sarah something, but she's the coroner in Warwick County. So that's my last option. So I contacted her and I said, my dad's a Vietnam veteran, explained to her whatever. And she's awesome. She is actually a nurse practitioner also at Deaconess, but she said, your dad was a Vietnam veteran. You tell me what you want the death certificate to say, and I'll put it on there so your mom can get those benefits. I said, I just want you to look at the records and put the correct.
Put the truth on there.
Put the truth on there. And she sent the death certificate back to me within an hour and explained it and everything. And so then I called and I said, is there any way you can tell me why this doctor would not change that? Because it's incorrect what he's doing. So I don't understand why. And she's like, she didn't cover for him, but I knew that she knew, or she knew that I knew. And the way she
just understood.
Yeah. The way she phrased it was basically, sometimes doctors aren't trained to do the death certificates or whatever. And I was like, oh, and so, but she changed it. But that's an indication that how compromised the healthcare system is that they're choosing to put incorrect information on a death certificate on the cause of death and not specifying, like arguing that, oh no, he did die. Like he just refused to change it.
Yeah.
And, but I wanted to tell that story because how hospitals went about things. I don't know if they're, things continue to be that way. I guess not, probably not, cause COVID screwed up a whole lot of things, but.
Well, man, listen, dude, what you're saying though, it happens so much. So we knew, I knew one guy, he had a friend that died in a car wreck and they tested him for COVID and they put COVID on his death certificate in that car wreck. And then we knew a group of nurses and they were sending unused COVID tests in and they were coming back positive. And these were nurses working the no reason.
Right.
These are trusted people. Yeah. So, dude, it goes back to that dirty government thing. That was a government thing, man. They were offering money. They were paying them off to say people died of COVID. That was a political move.
It was there. There are so many things that are coming out now. That they talked about. Well, the CIA, said that it wasn't from a fish market or whatever.
No, it was from the Chinese lab. Man.
Yeah, and so. But that's where that whole thing that we talked about before, where you're like, I don't side with either, because they don't have our best, they don't care. They just don't care.
Nope.
And I don't know if you know that, but like in the 70s, there was another, you could actually Google it too, but like it was, what is it? It wasn't a COVID, but it was like a COVID, because the COVID variant or whatever it is, it was
a coronavirus.
Corona, yeah. So that's almost like a kennel cough, like it's associated with a kennel cough. And so, but there was a a pandemic, I guess, that was happening back in the 70s where they were pushing the vaccinations and people were coming down with Guillain-Barré, which is an autoimmune response,
Yep.
And so, but I read about that not too long ago. And so I typically, I don't want to spout off anything that I don't see as factual. Like, I don't want to say things like, I think that's what, but like, I'm definitely, whenever I went to school, I was studying journalism. I wanted to be a journalist because I wanted to report on, all that stuff. But like, I can't stand whenever, someone says like, oh, I heard that, like it's almost like a rumor type situation. So I always try to make sure I've got facts in place. But like, there are so many unfounded things, in regards to COVID and the things that we're still questioning, I guess, that don't make sense,
Yeah, dude, I'm not afraid. Okay. So I think COVID, so we all my family got it.
Yeah. I've had it 3 times.
None of us got sick. We all were kind of asymptomatic. I couldn't smell. Had a small cold. One of my I got twin boys that are 24, and one of them was like, "Oh man, COVID's fake. You ain't got COVID." And I was trying to smell this jar of like minced garlic and nothing, dude. It's no smell.
Eating something was like
and
eating
he
cardboard.
was like, "You can't smell that," and he was like, I can't smell it either.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
Yeah. And then, so I definitely know the virus was real.
Oh yeah.
And it did. And we even had my brother-in-law had his best friend, pretty much the COVID pneumonia, they said pretty much turned his lungs into stone.
Yeah.
And he passed, but man, they were, like they were hiding treatments, and like the ivermectin ended up being very, very good for it. And they were like going against it. And they were, they didn't want people treated. And then the vaccine, there
were, what they recently just said, not to push it on to children and things like that. And so there's so many and I don't want to look at it as like right or left thing, obviously, but like just as a human thing, and like just the lack of integrity, the lack of accountability, like it's just, there's no accountability. And yeah, it's just,
and you can't even really make it a left or right thing. Trump was in when it hit.
Yeah.
And he there was things he did I didn't agree with during that, closing down everything and all,
Yeah.
I am a firm believer in herd immunity. I really do believe in herd immunity. I do. I think you're going to lose people with any pandemic, or epidemic. But I think the society as a whole will never acquire that herd immunity if you lock everybody in their
and
houses.
if it's manufactured, like I don't, but that's the thing too. It whenever they close all these businesses down and things like that, you have restaurants where people are told they have to wear a mask unless they're eating, but you can't.
Dude, underwear on your face is not going to stop. Dude, let me tell you, and I've had the privilege of doing several things in my life, and one of the things that I was for quite a while was a drywall man, a drywall finisher. Dude, I wore masks that were made to keep drywall out of your face, and every night when I took that mask off, my nose and mouth was full of drywall dust, no matter what.
Yeah.
So we think microbes, tiny microscopic
will not get through
are not going to get through underwear, which is what people were doing. They're wearing underwear on their face. I refused. I'm not going to lie. Let me tell you, one of Brian's pet peeves still, it makes me want to just pull over and slap them out of their cars when I see people driving in their car by themselves with a freaking mask on. Like, what are you going to do? Catch it? You going to give it to yourself?
You don't like that?
And I'm talking, dude, it's 2025 and they're still doing it. You still see it, man. There were people, we went to Universal last week, man, and there were people walking around in masks. I'm like,
and I'm almost like a fear, almost a PTSD thing or something where people are just so terrified of it. But it's the level of like the contradictory behaviors, like, again, it goes back to like seeing someone, like whenever they told us you can't go in and see your dad, and I'm like, we all had COVID, we just had, and my thing was, my dad's in that isolation, he's in that room by himself, and he's deteriorating, he needs human interaction. He needs people there to touch him and, to make sure he was conscious still, but like you want to have your family with you and,
Absolutely.
Love and support. And so they're preventing from that from happening.
Making people die alone.
Yeah. The girl that I dated that passed from the asthma attack, and she was in the hospital. She had brain, because she lost consciousness and oxygen and all this stuff. But anyway, so the whole time no one could go visit her. So they allowed her parents and her children to be up there, but friends, no one else could go see her. So I remember being so frustrated and saying, gosh, I can't imagine if this ever happened to one of my family members. Like if they prevented me from going in and see him, I will have to Billy's going to have to come and take me away. And it happened. And Billy's good. And it happened. It did. It was so my dad's, and they're like, you can't go in. I'm like, I'm losing it. So after the third day is when I finally went up the chain and got in touch with somebody in hospital administration. And I was crying. And I was like, my dad needs somebody in there. And they said, okay, just like that. They're like, okay, 2 people can be up there 4 hours or 4-hour increments a day. And I'm like, for 2 days, I've been trying to get through to somebody, and it was just that easy. So like, it led me to, like it was a control thing. It was a power thing. It's like, I'm sure they're not doing it to punish people. They have to follow protocol and all this stuff. But like for it to be so simple and go, yeah, okay. And I'm like,
protocol's fine, but it's got to make sense.
Yeah.
That's
man, like you can't just keep like that right there. That's a life. That's I can't imagine. So you did get to go and be with your dad
when he passed, he had the stroke and he was no longer conscious after that. So like, even after he had the stroke and wasn't conscious, so they usually wait 3 days after you have a stroke for the brain to swelling, to go down and things like that. And to see, if you react or anything. And so there was no activity at that point. And then it was at that point where we had said, we're going to remove him from life support. And then that's when they said, yeah, you can go in now. And I mean, I was so furious. And so like, I kind of have a tendency to push the envelope and try to test, the doctors and things like that. So I remember us all being in a room, hospital administration and stuff, and they're telling us, we're making the decision. And I talked to Robbie and I go, Rob, do you think that if we wanted to take my dad home and let him pass there because he loved that house, you think that he's like, absolutely, you can do that? Yeah, absolutely. Nope. And I remember being in that, and the 2 doctors and the hospital administration stuff. And I said, I got it recorded actually on my phone, but the whole thing. And I said, if we wanted to take my dad home, would that be possible? Now, one of the ways to get, for the hospitals to receive, those funds
is for the patient,
for the person to pass in the hospital. Yeah. And then the doctor, before I was even done asking the question, he's like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'm like, okay, well, why? And, his answer was, many things could happen during the transport to the house. There could be an accident or whatever. And I'm like, I don't have it on video. I have it on audio, but I'm like, he's 9.
Yeah.
Like, what are you being serious? And so, and then he, just came up with several other things. And then my cousin was in there, my mom's cousin, and they kind of sensed the awkwardness and stuff. And she's like, yeah, well, we're probably not going to do that anyway, whatever, just to kind of diffuse it or whatever. But I mean, I'm just sitting there glaring at this doctor, like, give me a real response. Like, tell me, but like I've already.
Hey, Billy, if you're listening, it would have took more than you.
Yeah. But that was the funny thing is that they just chose the finance, they don't care about, whether
they're always going to choose money.
Yeah.
They're going to chase money.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something about them doctors. Most people, there are some that become doctors because they want to help people.
Sure. Absolutely.
But most kids who grow up to be a doctor, they do it because that is the money.
Yeah.
They're doing that for the, I mean, which no problem. But when you're a kid,
but when you start choosing money over people,
but what do we even tell our kids? Almost every parent ever, you can grow up and be a doctor, because it's success, right? And then so they chase money and they get to where that's what they do, man, and that's what they're trained to do.
Yeah, it's like whenever whenever you have, like, what I learned through dealing with hospitals and things like that, you have, and I'm not saying this to be fact, but like, you have larger cities where you're going to attract doctors because of the pay and just the larger city. And then the smaller cities, maybe the doctors from that town or something like that. I don't know. But like, they're less, like, nobody sees transverse myelitis here, I mean, they do, but it's not too common. And, so, you have conditions like mine. If I had been in Evansville whenever that occurred, I don't know what would have happened, but I just happened to have the Mayo Clinic there, and like, they are experts at that. They knew exactly. They have a clinic there. It's the Transverse Myelitis Clinic, and so for such a rare thing, but like, so yeah, they're whenever you're choosing a small city over a larger one, is it because? What's the reason why,
it's funny you say that because I told you earlier about Sam, my son, and that condition he has. And like, he can't be treated. He couldn't be treated here.
Right.
His entire life, anytime he needed to be treated, we would have to go to Riley, or we would have to go to the, Cosair, which is in Louisville, which we never did. We always went to Riley, but it's not even. So there were literally, I think there were 8 doctors in the U.S. that treated that. That's how rare it is.
Wow.
And so it was. You had to go to a big city. Yeah, man. If you're in some of these smaller places, you're not going to get the treatment that you need. But hopefully, somebody here would have at least found it and sent you. Don't we have a Mayo? Is there a Mayo Clinic in Indy?
No. Just
is it just Florida?
No, the main offices, the main campus is in Minnesota. That's where it started.
Okay, that's right.
And then it's Arizona, and I think it's Phoenix, I think it's Phoenix, and then Jacksonville.
Okay, so it's actually in Jacksonville.
Yeah,
that's where you live.
Yeah, and it was like literally like 5 minutes from me.
Yeah,
I was so lucky there. But those places, like, that should be the blueprint for healthcare in this country, in my opinion, just because the way they go about it, they follow up. They want to learn, like, everybody's there for, like, whenever I had the neurologist at the Mayo Clinic that came in to meet with me each day, it was like on Grey's Anatomy when you have a team like, there was one main neurologist, and then he had 4 other neurologists with him that came in, and everybody's taking notes, asking questions. And I'm like, wow, like, the other one, the lady,
such a vast difference.
Yeah, the lady was going on a cruise, and it was just her, like, and these guys are like, I mean,
hey, doctors will put you all. Another story. When my twins were born, right, 25 years ago, my wife had a date, and she was induced. And when she was induced, she started going into labor, and then all of a sudden, after she'd been in labor for like, I don't know, like 6-8 hours, like a long time. Uh-huh. The doctor came in and stopped the labor, used drugs to stop her labor. And then we found out that she had a dinner party to go to. And she went to the dinner party, and my wife laid there, she stopped the baby from being born, but my wife still laid there in labor for like, it ended up being like 26 hours or something. And then she came in the next day after her, the next day she came in and used PIT to restart the
wow.
Yeah, dude. And so we always tell that story, how, man, the twins were like, they were born.
The dinner party twins.
Yeah. Dude, but think about that. That doctor did that. I mean, and this is fact. This is not, speculation. We know exactly what happened.
Right.
My wife worked for the doctor who delivered the babies.
Wow.
And here's what's really crazy is that was a female doctor who did that. And you would think that
there would be some sort of a sympathetic.
Yeah.
I know what you're going through, hon. I'm not going
to.
Right.
It is crazy, man. Well, what a great conversation, man. And dude, I'm so glad that you came out of it, and I'm so glad you reached out when you did. And I immediately went to I was like, man, I know Bub's got this great story with it is a great story because it's got a happy ending.
Sure.
And I know you still got, man, to be honest, like, the issues that you name, that that you still have that are residual. It's like, man, if that's
all,
it, yeah,
I'm walking.
You're blessed, man. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But brother, it's been so good to see you.
Yeah.
And
it's awesome.
man, we can do this again.
For sure.
It's not a one shot pony.
I'd like to talk about some music and some pop culture. And
man, we need to do that. But we'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
But
some
I'm
more
glad.
Upbeat topics.
But this is upbeat because
I love this story. I'm glad that you came in and shared.
All that stuff's fun, but this is valuable to people, man.
Sure.
People need to hear, people who go through that, or even to be honest, your story kind of transverses your, hold on a minute. What's this?
Transverse
myelitis. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, your story transverses. It's not just about that.
Right.
Because what happened was you made a decision to get better.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would do so much better in life, even if it's, even if it's not health.
Yeah.
Like when you make a decision to do better, you said your buddy said do better, right? I think that really is a thing that we should all live by. It's so crazy what happened to you. And like I said, I watched it from social media and stuff because you live far away, and like I said, I hadn't seen you, but and the fact that it's been it's
been 14 years
and since that happened, and this is the first conversation I've got to have. Let's not let that happen no more.
And if for the people who watch your show, like I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I know a lot about the condition, but anybody who faces any sort of a challenge similar to this or whatever, and they're just reaching out, trying to find out what's the best route to do this or whatever it is, reach out to you guys. You guys can put them in touch with me, whatever. Like I would love to help people out in these, because whenever I went through it, I didn't know what was going on. So you're always looking for somebody who knows, how to handle a situation like this, what doctors are getting, how to handle it. And I got a pretty firm grasp on how to go about doing things. So I'm happy to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do this, man. I'm going to put the link to your video in the description of this video.
That'd be great.
And if you want to get a hold of Dennis or Bub, I said Dennis one last time, then you can comment on your video, right?
Yeah.
And then you can reach back out to him from there.
Sure.
But man, hey, let me tell you, man, it's a big deal for when other people want to help other people. I think it's a super, it's a super great thing, man. Bub, I'm really impressed that, man, the whole victory thing.
Don't be impressed with us.
Yeah, don't
There's
be
nothing
with
much
us.
impressive here.
Besides our size.
Right.
And it ain't good size either.
Yeah.
Like my condolences, because you guys lost a member of the third member of ZZ Top. And I'm sorry,
I know
sad about
that did suck, man. That did suck.
Crazy.
We also lost Phil Robinson last week. Phil Robertson, we lost him.
Oh yeah, that is.
And I love those guys, man. I do. But now here, I've said this before though, and I want to make it clear. Duck Dynasty has nothing to do with our beers. Like that's you're like, you like Duck Dynasty. I'm like, no, I'm not. ZZ Top, I'm more cool with. They're awesome. But again, man, super awesome to be with you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, to share, do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And awesome. Make sure to check that video description out so that you can get the link to Bub's video. Listen, if you're facing this or any kind of other issue, man, there's no other help like other people who have been through similar situations. We actually say that all the time, man. In fact, I think a lot of times the reason we go through things is so that we can help somebody else at some point that's going through the same thing.
Learning process.
Man, brother, it's awesome. I think you'll like this. We say goodbye like this every single week. You ready, Jimmy?
Yeah, man. Well, bye.